You can't see it. It makes this whole thing so stupid.
Defeats the entire purpose.
It really does.
I'm a little surprised you're still going with the bit. You're still wearing the mask.
Well, at this point, I mean,
All
you
right,
got to
here,
lean into the character.
Hold on, let me take a picture of you.
Okay.
Theater of the mind. I'll tweet out a picture of what my co-host looks like. Right now.
Well, I'm glad you have to tweet it out because now we don't.
There you go.
We're not on YouTube anymore. We've been booted after like 3 weeks. It was fun. Thank you.
What did we say that was so offensive? I thought you could get away with anything on YouTube.
I've seen a lot of stuff on YouTube make me think that's true.
There's some messed up stuff on there, man.
There's some pretty messed up stuff on YouTube.
Conspiracy theories, wild videos, stuff runs rampant on YouTube. There's no way we got booted this early.
Yeah.
The other thing too is I've told my nieces and nephew know what I do for work. I think they've heard the show one time. And they say I complained about crows not getting out of the way when I drive, and I don't even remember doing that segment, but they mock me for like, oh, the crows, and that's their thing. That's their bit. When we talk about what Uncle Andy does for work, they have found out that I'm now on YouTube, and the coolness factor of what I do for a living has just grown exponentially.
Yeah.
Of like now, before it was like, yeah, well, like what radio, okay, whatever. Now it's, wait, you're on YouTube? How do I watch? Where do I find it? Where do I go?
Right.
Now all of a sudden there's inquisitive questions about what I do for a living.
Well, yesterday my oldest was watching some TV, and she must have watched like 3 hours of YouTube. Just like these people on YouTube. It flies to the next, from one video to the next video, from that video to the next video.
Yeah, and I guess I'll watch that. Let's see what this one's about. Okay, let's find out about that.
Would you like to guess who I came dressed as today?
I have no clue.
You can't guess?
I can't guess. You got a scary mask on. I'm sending out the tweet, by the way, that we're not currently on YouTube.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I'll alert the listeners.
You don't know who I am?
I do not know who you are.
Really?
You're a scary clown of some sort.
No.
It's got green hair.
No.
Weird lips. A bit of a Joker vibe over there. Am I getting a Joker vibe?
You're not wrong on the description of it, but you don't know who I am?
I can't put my finger on it, no.
You don't recognize Jonathan Smith? No?
Did you just call a fake field goal? Is that what you just called?
With my slow-ass white kicker?
Is that what's happening at the end of the first half? Are you calling a fake field goal right now?
I don't want to run Damian Martinez, the second leading rusher in the conference. I want to run a 5'8" kicker. Why take points?
That's a scary costume for Beaver fans right now. That is a scary costume.
If you don't want to say it's a Beaver coach, you could also say it's a different coach. You know another coach that looks just like this?
Who else looks like that?
Kevin Stefanski. I have a third-string quarterback, and I'm going to throw on 3rd and 3, even though I'm just shredding the Seahawks defense.
It seems like a good sound strategy. That's what I like to do with my quarterback who's not very talented. Put him in a position to lose.
What an idiot. Just an absolute moron of a coach.
Biggest clown of the weekend. This could be a new theme for the show. Every Monday, who was the biggest clown? I got called a clown on Friday by listeners, and then I was not called a clown this weekend.
Anybody tweet you?
No, I tweeted people though.
Oh.
I tweeted people, but nobody tweeted me.
Well, it's a rough time right now.
It is a tough time.
It's a delicate time.
You guys are going through your feels right. I know. I was just there a couple of weeks ago. I know what it's like. The woulda, coulda, shoulda losses are the worst. The ones where you leave the game and you think, God, how did we lose that game?
Yeah.
They stick with you. It's one thing if you go out and you lose by 14 and it's kind of like, all right, we never really were in it. They controlled it throughout. Like, could have done things differently and won. When you have a game where you make dumb mistakes to that level and you feel like you were still in control of the game, it lingers, it stings, and it burns the nostrils.
It does. It's a pretty awful feeling. I don't think there's a contest, though. As mad as I might be at Kevin Stefanski for being an absolute idiot, Jonathan Smith is the clown of the weekend. It's not even close.
That was one of the worst coaching decisions I think I have ever seen.
That's definitely in my top 5 for sure. That's something that I would have been like, did you see what that Iowa State coach did?
Sure.
You know that. Did you see what Purdue's coach tried to do this weekend?
I mean, I'm just trying to think of like really dumb plays. The first one that stands out is the Colts when they faked the punt. Remember that one where they hiked it under center, and there were 3 defenders standing directly in front of him, and it's like, what were you thinking
against
there?
the Patriots, Sunday Night Football? I actually almost tweeted out a photo of that play, and I said, my grandkids, how did Oregon State lose to Arizona? I was going to show a picture of that, and then I deleted it because I was so angry and confused, and I was like, I'm just going to bed. This is stupid. This is all dumb.
And this is coming from somebody who will basically excuse isn't the right word, but I will find a way to defend.
We got somebody saying we're on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that helps Swigard or if they just figured it out, but Cole tweeted us, said, you guys are on YouTube. I have it up. Sweet mass.
Oh, we are on YouTube right now.
Right.
Okay.
So we got it going.
But it doesn't, the go live thing isn't a button that's been pressed, so.
Well, Swag might have pressed it. I don't know.
Okay, the cameras are like slowly moving. We're out of the picture. I can't quite figure it out. Kyle just said TF is going on. I don't know what's going on right now.
We're losing our minds here, Kyle.
Look, I will defend almost every aggressive decision. I defended the onside kick. Beaver fan hated that call. I defended my coach when he went for it on 4th down. Like I'm okay with coaches being aggressive. I like being aggressive. You have to, though, explain to me, like, there was no chance that was going to work.
There isn't an explanation.
There was no chance of a kicker running at 20 yards. That makes, if you fake that, 25.
Yeah.
If you fake that the first time you kick the field goal, which they tried to,
yes,
and you don't get it, I'm not going to kill you for it. Like it was a 4th and 2. You saw something in the formation. You wanted to get aggressive. All right, maybe it doesn't work. I can at least rationalize that in my brain. Of you needed 2 yards, the kicker could run at 2 yards, okay. Needing to run the ball 25 yards as time expires. I saw one Beaver fan, too, who tried to rationalize it the next day of like, man, if we just make one block. And I'm like, dude, I'm watching this replay. There's 3 Arizona defenders who were right there. I don't think it was just missing one block. And it just doesn't, like, that was so bad.
I thought it was a bad snap.
Just like a free-for-all.
I would not allow my brain to say that he purposely did that.
He's just going to start running. Run, go, go.
We'll get to the audio of why he did it. And I told Beaver fan this, like, you can say, like, somebody tweeted us, like, if you interview him again, you better demand to know why he did this. And I'm like, he's going to be asked this 3 or 4 different times. Do you know what's going to happen? His answer will not satisfy you.
No, it will not.
And to be honest with you, nothing he could say does. He just took accountability for it. He moved on. And, like, we can ask again, he's going to give us the same answer. So you kind of just stuck with it happened, and he made a really bad decision.
Yeah, I watched the post-game press conference, which took way too long to get uploaded. I was, like, waiting. I was like, I got to hear what Jonathan Smith says after the game.
I'm like, I'll listen to it tomorrow. I don't have time for this.
Yeah, I listened to it Saturday night, and he was asked about it, and he owned up to it. That's all you can do as a coach, and he said, well, obviously, we wish we didn't make that call. It's one that we regret, and it didn't make sense to make him run that far, and it's amazing to – I want to go back into the mindset of in the moment. Like, you really thought there was a chance that he was going to do that. Like, you really thought in calling that play that your kicker was going to run at 25 yards against a Pac-12 defense.
Yeah.
Like, if you fake that and throw it, I think I can excuse it in my mind. Still don't agree with the call.
Nope, take
but
the
at
points.
least with throwing the ball, there's a chance that you get to the end zone. Like, there's an opportunity of it happening. You just basically said, we don't want 3 points. Here you go.
Something we won't get to today that may be the biggest thing in sports from the weekend. Do you know what it is?
I have no clue.
I teased this to you yesterday.
You did.
I was wondering if you'd figured out. Swag, have you figured it out? One of the biggest things to happen in sports happened this weekend, and I don't even think it's on people's minds today. Can you figure it out?
No.
Okay. We had the top heavyweight MMA fighter who has never boxed in his entire life go against the heavyweight champion of the world in boxing and get robbed because he probably should have beaten Tyson Fury.
I saw he knocked him down. I saw that trending on Twitter.
I didn't watch the fight, but I trust a lot of people who are in the fighting world. All of them said he got robbed. All of them. He won the fight. It was clear he won the fight, and Tyson Fury gets a split decision instead of Francis Ngannou being a champion of the MMA and boxing.
That is pretty wild.
And you might not think it's as big a story as I'm making it out to be, but if I would have told 1996 Jason Swigard that an MMA fighter was going to just jump into boxing and beat Mike Tyson, he wouldn't have believed
mixed
me.
martial arts fighter.
There's no way anybody would have believed me that happened.
It would have been longer odds than Buster Douglas.
Exactly.
So what's the rationale here? Fury's just done. He took the fight for money, and he's not fight. Like, is he over the hill? Is the other guy that good? What was the excuse for it?
Well, the other guy trained boxing trained for a while. It's not like he just showed up.
Yeah,
for
this
a
fight didn't just happen 2 weeks ago.
Well, no, I know, but usually when these fights happen, the MMA guy gets his ass whooped.
A lot of people think Fury didn't take it as seriously in training, whereas Ngannou is a little smaller, but he's not smaller in weight. If you've seen him, he's a massive human being.
Big dude.
And he was just ready, and Fury wasn't.
Yeah.
And he got robbed.
I also saw a highlight of Fury hitting him with a purposeful elbow, too.
Oh, yeah, he dirty-ass little guy.
That went a dirty big-ass guy, I would say. He's
a little guy.
Very large human being. I'm having a really hard time taking you seriously this morning.
Well, good, because that's how I felt about watching my football team this weekend. It's going to be on all day. I don't care.
I'm having a really hard time with this.
Well,
You walked in and I thought, did I miss Halloween? Is Halloween today?
No,
Am I a
Halloween's
day
tomorrow.
early? It's
Halloween's tomorrow.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, so I'm not quite in the loop with all that stuff. I'm like, I'm pretty sure today's not Halloween.
Well, I dressed as Jonathan Smith. That's what I wanted to come as today, Jonathan Smith, so I could harness my Oregon State takes properly.
Your inner clown energy.
Yes, because there's no other way to describe what happened on Saturday night than to call it clown behavior. I'm glad that's my team.
Yeah. Go Beavs.
Man, your team had a good weekend, didn't they?
They looked pretty good.
Yeah,
they looked pretty good.
They did.
I will say this.
It's gonna be a rough month for Beaver fan.
It's going to be tough.
It's gonna be really hard.
It is hard to top the feeling of a college football Saturday where your team gets a big win, like a nice, easy, comfortable, whoa, that was good. And then that allows you as a college football fan to sit back, put your feet up, and just watch everybody else freak the hell out.
Yeah.
That feeling on a Saturday
feeling.
of like, I'm done. My team's done. We've done what we needed to do. We're on to next weekend. And then you get to watch Washington nearly lose to Stanford, Oregon State lose to Arizona. Social media is freaking out. And you're just feet up in the air laughing like, yeah, this is fun. Huh? This is great.
Yeah.
There's no better feeling than that on a Saturday.
You're not wrong there, Andrew. You're not wrong. We have a lot to get to today. We have no guest. There's too many things to talk about. I didn't want to book a guest. I just thought, let's dive into all of it.
I'm glad we're on YouTube, but at least we got that figured out.
Well, me too. I wore a costume.
I have a thing in here that says go live, so I don't know who did the go live or how, like mine doesn't say that we're live, so.
No, we're live.
Okay, we're live.
I had to go in. Joey's on his way in. He called me and
What happened?
I don't know what happened. Somehow the software got shut down or turned off or
Somebody
something.
get the WB on the horn. Stop turning the cameras off.
So, but then I had to like reframe the shots because they weren't framed up.
Gotcha.
So he's trying to tell me how to navigate the stupid, and I'm the one that you want doing this at 6 a.m.
Yeah, Swag is agitated.
The good news is they're going to pay you more for all this extra work.
All right, well, coming up next.
He's still pissed about the hair comments.
Well, I mean, that's more of a general. All of this is, we don't get paid more for extra work. It was more of a this sucks joke kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I
more
got
of like
it.
a collective suffering joke, not a,
Yeah,
not a
I
show.
got it.
Yeah,
I got it.
Okay.
We will start with the local taste. Oregon dominates Utah, and I'm dressed as Jonathan Smith today on a pre-Halloween Eve. And so let's get the show going. Dirt and Sprague, we're back with local taste on the Fan.
Oregon Ducks football is on the
check. Unleash the flutes on him, go roll.
James in the game of the running back. Back to throw Bo. Bo throws into James wide open. 5-3. Touchdown! Oregon. Touchdown Jordan James over the middle. Clear sailing to the end zone.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Dirt and Sprague here. YouTube.com/1080 The Fan. I'm Jonathan Smith today. So when we talk Oregon State, it'll make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I get to interview the coach live on the show today. It's good.
You do.
I like that.
Ask me any questions. I'll give you honest answers.
The hard-hitting questions will come later on in the show.
Let's start. Your team went to the desert, and most people are the mountains. What would you call Utah?
More
Desert mountains?
I think more mountains, probably.
The Wasatch Mountains.
Yeah, there you go.
It's applicable.
But your team goes to Utah and handles business. Never really in doubt at any one point. They scored on 3 of their first 4 possessions with tutties and wiped the floor with the Utes.
Yeah, I don't think it was the fact that Oregon won that's surprising anybody or getting anybody talking. I mean, I thought we were pretty spot on this game. There was a pretty high level of confidence for me going into it, and it primarily was just that Utah doesn't have a trustworthy offense. I mean, I know that they scored against USC, but that's against USC. And so I do think Utah's playing better at this point in the year than maybe they were a month or two ago. I think they've improved as the season has gone on with Bryson Barnes at quarterback, but I'm not surprised in the least that Oregon went in there and won. They're just the more complete, talented team. I think the eye-opener of this weekend wasn't that they won. It was the matter in which you beat Utah and how dominant it truly was. That just has not happened to Utah at home, no matter how good or bad their team has been. You can argue in their entire run in the Pac-12. Kyle Whittingham was asked after the game, when was the last time somebody did that to you in Salt Lake City? And he had to basically go back to pre-Pac-12 days, like a TCU game in the Mountain West in like 2010, in which they came in and just smoked them. Like, I know Utah's banged up. They're shorthanded, and these are all the reasons that we liked Oregon to win the game pretty comfortably. But to completely dominate a team at the point of attack who is known for being the most physical team in the Pac-12, I thought was really eye-opening, and it's the reason that people are reacting. If Oregon wins that game, 24-17, kind of ugly, low-scoring, defensive battle, similar to last year's game at Autzen Stadium, I think it's all right. That was a nice win. We'll see where the rest of the year goes. But the fact that you dominated them to that level, and it's a team that doesn't get dominated, it was eye-opening, I think, for a lot of folks this weekend.
Bo Nix comes out of this game with people talking about Heisman, and I mean no disrespect with this, but I just don't really see it. I know he's going to be a finalist for it. He's certainly lined up right now to be one of those, but he had a really good day for himself. The Oregon offense was humming, man. Like Utah's defense, I thought the one reason I didn't think this game was going to be close or an upset was because I just didn't know if Utah's offense would be able to keep their defense off the field long enough. And I think that showed itself after the first couple possessions. Oregon took full advantage of that.
They did. Utah had 99 rushing yards as a team. They averaged 2.8 yards per carry as a team. And that, like, if you told anybody on Friday that Utah's not going to be able to run the football, the game's going to be over. Like, there's no chance Utah can win. They have to be able to run the ball. You go to their USC win the week before, they had 250 rushing yards as a team. So Bryson Barnes got a lot of the attention, and they hit some deep shots to Vaki and all that. Game-winning field goal was great. They won that game because they ran the ball for 250 yards, and it kept their defense off the field, and it kept their offense alive. They ran it 36 times for 99 yards. Their longest run was 14 yards. They had one 14-yard run, which came in the second half. And when you suffocate a team to that level at the line of scrimmage, it's really demoralizing as the game goes on. I will tell you, the swing moment in the game where it was like, wow, this might be a really comfortable win, was after they held Utah to a field goal following the fumble and then scored quickly on their next drive.
Yeah.
Because it's all, when you're going on the road, and we're going to go through this with Oregon today, because now it's going to be, well, who's going to beat them the rest of the way, and look at the rest of the season and all that. There's always that uncomfortable feeling when you kick off a game of, please don't let something weird happen.
Oh, I got takes on that.
Sure.
Who's going to beat Oregon the rest of the way?
When Oregon scores an easy touchdown on their opening drive, which was great because it quieted the crowd, it shut everybody up, and I think it made Utah fans have that like gulp feeling of, that wasn't good. And then you get a stop on fourth down on your second drive and then immediately fumble. And that's when those weird spidey senses kick in of like, oh God, don't let dumb things happen in this game. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Like, that's the only way that you're going to keep Utah alive. And to hold them to a field goal on that drive, to maintain the momentum, and then to score on your next drive to immediately go up 14-3. We said it all last week. Like, if Oregon can build an early lead in this game, Utah's not going to be able to come back. They can't throw their way back in when they're down by 11 or they're down by 17. They have no chance at winning, and you can just suffocate them like a snake, and that's exactly what Oregon's defense did.
Brandon Dorless.
Massive.
What a day.
Massive.
Holy crap, man.
The entire defensive line, you can make an argument for.
No, for sure, but Dorless just hunkered down there in the middle and closing everything up. I mean, that was a nightmare of a day for Utah.
That's the third time this year now that an Oregon defense has held their Pac-12 opponent without a touchdown. They did it to Colorado, they did it to Stanford, and they now have done it to Utah. Not the greatest offenses in the world, but that's something that Oregon's defense, I don't know if they've ever done. And it's really exciting to see how good they were on that side of the ball. And again, Utah's not the most dynamic offense. I'm thanking my lucky stars that we caught them shorthanded because Utah at full strength is a much different looking team. But that's still a team that hung, 40 points 2 weeks ago against Cal and 35 or whatever it was against USC. They can move it a little bit. Vaki has given them a weapon.
Yeah.
To hold them without a touchdown and basically give them no hope and like 200 yards of total offense, man, that was fun to watch.
How massive is it in hindsight now to get out of Texas Tech with that win?
Huge, dude.
Right? Like, you think about things like that and moments like that, you lose to Washington in a heartbreaking fashion. But going into the season, we looked at the back end of the schedule, and you're like, Washington, Utah, USC, Oregon State, last rivalry game of who knows how many years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to it, and you go, okay, well, we didn't beat Washington, but we were pretty damn close, and we statistically won the game.
Yeah.
We just didn't score more points.
Just didn't convert inside the 10-yard line.
Utah was never going to get their quarterback back, but we didn't know that for most of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's the pig farmer. USC is a disaster, and Oregon State can't win a road game to save their damn lives. So it's like suddenly that schedule looked kind of like, whoa, like how do you get out of that? To does anybody beat them going forward? And we'll get into it, but it's so funny to look 3 weeks ago how Duck fan felt versus how they feel today. 3 weeks ago, it was like, oh, God, Washington beat us.
So quickly things can change.
Our season might be over. And not that every Duck fan was saying that by any stretch, but there is that feeling when you lose to a rival, and 3 weeks later, you're the second most efficient team in college football. The second. You know who the first is?
Who's number one?
The guys who cheat.
It haven't played anybody.
That also. Yes, Michigan.
I will, there's a Duck honk who's raising his hand. That Duck honk is me, who remembers saying after the game and getting laughed at that maybe losing that game to Washington was a good thing. That sometimes with a really talented team, getting a little extra sense of motivation, getting that extra push, having that safety net taken away.
There's urgency every
knowing
game
of like,
now.
dude, we can't let one slip. We have no room for error. We have no margin for error. And we have to play perfect football the rest of the way. And you didn't sit back, get fat, and get fed rat poison for 2 weeks. And I don't really know how else to excuse what's going on with Washington right now, other than it's a lot of rat poison that they've been eating.
Oh, I want to get into them.
And
today.
they need to stop eating rat poison. But it seems like this is an Oregon team that has that understanding. There's that sharpness. There's that edge to them in what they're doing. And as a fan, when you ask for things to improve and they do, it's a great feeling because on Friday, I wanted a faster start. Oregon has gotten off to slow starts against Washington. They didn't get off to a great start against Washington State. Didn't get off to a great start. 14-3 at the end of the first quarter immediately. I asked for them to finish drives. They have not been finishing drives the last couple of weeks. It cost them the Washington game. 5 for 5 in scoring touchdowns. Didn't settle for a field goal.
Yep.
None of those awkward fourth down decisions. They converted. They scored touchdowns. And then the middle eight. I mean, Oregon outscored Utah in that middle eight. I mean, they came out and got an immediate stop to open the second half when it's 14 or 24-6 or 21-6, whatever the score was.
21-6, yeah.
And then you immediately score a touchdown, get another stop, and immediately score a touchdown. Not to mention holding Utah to only a field goal at the end of the first half. They dominated the middle eight, and they had not done that the last couple of weeks. And so when you ask for things to improve, and they do, that's a sign of a team that understands their weaknesses, and they went about addressing them.
They beat them so bad that Utah fans left at halftime, which doesn't happen very often at Utah. That's a very passionate fan base, and even they were put into submission and said, we can't hang with this. This is a different level of football team.
Kyle Whittingham was searching for answers after the game of like, wow, that has not happened in a long time.
No, it doesn't. But they took care of business. You could have Deion Sanders your way into the studio and high stepped and said, "Oh, we're gonna talk about Oregon. What about the Oregon State comments that I made that I was chastised over?" And nobody tweeted me after what happened Saturday night.
We'll get to those.
We will get to those.
We'll get to those.
As you can tell from my outfit, we will get to those today.
I got called a clown on Friday who doesn't watch college football.
I did see that.
That one offended me. That one got under my skin.
There are comments, like, it's one thing to say, I think you're an idiot because you're wrong. Okay.
Or I disagree, or I don't,
We are idiots.
Yes.
When people suggest that you don't watch a sport that you talk an awful lot about, and the amount of hours we spend watching football, like, it's one thing to be wrong on something.
It's another to be wrong, but no, I will. I'll get on people. It's like, no, the one thing that you guys do is, I mean, we're all sitting there texting Saturday, going back and forth.
I mean, I rewatch games throughout the course of the week. I'm willing to wager, and this is not I know more about football than anybody. I'm willing to wager that I watch more college football than anybody that works at the Fan.
Wow. I mean, that's...
I mean, I rewatch games on YouTube all week.
Pac-12 60. I mean, come on.
I don't have kids. I got nothing to do.
What am I out here? Just
I have
liver. I don't watch football.
No responsibilities. Other than my furnace broke this weekend. That was great timing.
And you bought a new car. You're poor.
I bought a new car.
God, you're poor.
I am poor.
I'm so glad you're poor. I mean, your team is so rich.
Internal panic attacks about the check that I have to go write today.
Boy, that's the worst, isn't it?
Like, God, that much money?
You just feel broke as soon as you hand that check over.
Yes. Like, I'm going to hold on. It's going to be one of those where they're going to grab it, and I'm not letting go. Like, maybe we can still return it and get a used car for like $500. No.
I'm going to tag every single person at the Fan on Twitter with this poll question. Does Dirt watch the most college football of anybody at 1080 The Fan? That is a hell of a proclamation to make.
Swag watches the most sports, and I don't think it's even remotely close.
That is 100%
That's
fact.
100%
I will not
true.
argue.
And I'm making the argument. I'm going to put my name atop the mantle. I think I watch more than anybody.
College or pro?
College. Not pro, college.
Okay.
I barely watched a second of NFL yesterday.
Really?
It was a long day of car buying.
Did you record the red zone?
I did not.
Are you going to get home and go 7 hours of commercial replay
on a Monday? Well, I thought we don't really talk a lot of NFL Mondays, and there's a lot to get to with Oregon and Oregon State.
They don't replay that at some point, like on a Tuesday.
How is it not just replaying on that channel all
the
week?
time?
All
Exactly.
week, just like on a cycle.
Usually you just go to it and they play lovely NFL music for you, which I sometimes do during the week. You just need a little bump on a Tuesday.
We got the whole NFL Films library in the system.
I got to be honest, wearing this is actually making me feel better about how stupid my team was this weekend. I don't know how to make that make sense.
It was a rough watch.
It was a very rough watch. We'll get to it, but coming up next, I want to dive around the Pac-12 action. I thought it was a very interesting week in a Pac-12 football. I did watch some Pac-12 football. It wasn't just Dirt that watched Pac-12 football. I watched some Pac-12 football. I want to talk about it more, but first, Swag with a sports update.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
If you've been arrested for DUI, you need a team of attorneys you can put your trust in. Call Reynolds Defense Firm today online at reynoldsdefensefirm.com. First on the Fan, the Ducks 35-6 pasting of the Utes on the road, moving them up to 6th in the latest AP Top 25 college football poll. They're just one spot behind the Washington Huskies at 5th. The Beavers' loss at Arizona dropped them to 16th. Utah's 18th, UCLA 20th, USC 24th. The first College Football Playoff Committee rankings are set to be released Tuesday afternoon. Geno Smith found Jackson Smith and Jigba in the final minute of the game for a 9-yard touchdown pass to beat the Browns 24-20. And Seattle takes a half-game lead over the 49ers for the NFC West Division lead. They're in Baltimore to face the Ravens this Sunday. Monday Night Football visits the Lions in Detroit for the first time since Week 1 of 2018. They host the Raiders for a 5:15 kick on ESPN and KTU Channel 2. Lions currently 7.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. A long night in Philly for the young Blazers, now playing without Anthony Simons for at least a month due to a torn UCL in his thumb. Sixers erupt in the second half for a 126-98 dismantling of Portland led by Joel Embiid's 35 points, 15 boards, and 7 assists. Blazers in Toronto tonight. They'll face the Raptors at 4:30 on Root Sports Northwest. Raptors currently 7.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Your favorite fan shows are on YouTube. Match the
And, of course, youtube.com/1080 The Fan. That was the final call. USC beating California 50-49. Cal goes for 2 and potentially the win, and they don't get it. And USC comes back and narrowly escapes California on the road. Cal plus 11 was one of the easiest picks of the weekend. And USC survives somehow, some way. 5-1 in Pac-12 play, 7-2. I didn't understand. So I love that Wilcox wanted to go for the win.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really understand the idea that, like, if that's your thinking, why did you call a timeout?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah, sometimes when you get those decisions, I agree with the decision. I don't agree with the process in making it and the play call.
Yes.
And that's where it's like, I always want teams to strike in that moment. You're Cal, dude. This is like, you got a chance to win this game. Your season is going nowhere. Pull off this upset. It would be massive. And you don't want to go to an overtime and have to stop Caleb Williams multiple times because it's not going to happen. Arizona just did this a number of weeks ago, and they ended up losing in overtime with some really bad two-point conversion play calls. They didn't go for the jugular. It ended up biting them. I just want to see a different play call in that moment. I will say, though, there was a part of me that was a hair sad that we didn't get to see a 50-50 tie game going to overtime.
I know.
Like, the spectacle of that on the scoreboard would have been really cool. 50-50. Like, that was your 50-50 going to overtime.
I'm always amazed in college and the NFL sometimes. I'm amazed we don't have, like, two-point conversions are not. There's two-point conversion plays, but I'm just amazed of how awful they are.
This happens, too, in short yardage situations, right? Like last week, I was not here on Monday because I was sick. Washington State ran a trick play on 4th down.
Yeah.
And a key moment in that game, like a reverse pass, when Cam Ward could not be stopped at that moment. You're like, you took the ball out of your quarterback's hands, who at that point was torching Oregon's defense, and you gave it to a wide receiver to throw it. I understand there's a trick factor, and Stanford tried the same thing against Washington. They didn't execute it, but at least theirs had a chance at success in terms of a trick play. It's amazing, though, sometimes when you get into those, and it's like, I agree with the decision. I just don't agree with the play call. This was Oregon against Washington. I didn't have any problem with you going for it. I just didn't think any of the play calls were good, and that, to me, was the thing that was more egregious than the idea or decision to go for it.
Is a Pac-12 owe Shiloh Sanders an apology for one of the most egregious targeting ejections I've ever seen in my entire life?
There was a part of me that got frustrated with the reaction to it because hits like that happen all the time in college football.
Dude, there was nothing dirty about that call. I mean, about that hit.
No, there was not.
He hit him with his shoulder. He hit his shoulder. Like, what is he supposed to do there?
Go low and tear his ACLs?
Well, Gronk, it's funny is Gronk saw this, Rob Gronkowski, and responded and says, as a pass catcher, I'd actually want to be hit exactly where Sanders hit. The tight end.
It was shoulder to shoulder, essentially.
Yeah, because
I know there was a little helmet contact, but it was not a spearing or a malicious hit.
Well, no, but you don't want your legs taken out. Those are ligaments, man. You could be out for a year and a half. Like, it's a bad hit. Maybe you feel a little woozy for a second, but most part, like, it's shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. The only frustration I had was that if that was anybody other than Shiloh Sanders, that clip does not go viral, and it is not talked about.
I don't know
hits like
about
that happen all the time in the Pac-12. Guys are ejected. Not every weekend, but almost every other weekend. I'm watching a game, and I'm like, how are you going to toss a guy out of a game for that? That's ridiculous.
Well, you would know better than I. You watch the most college football of anybody at 1080 The Fan.
Like, I'm just cracking up of, like, of course Gronkowski and Richard Sherman are tweeting about this. If that was not Shiloh Sanders, they are not tweeting about a random hit in a Colorado-UCLA game. They're not watching Colorado-UCLA, and highlights from Colorado-UCLA do not go viral.
Did you see what Deion said?
About his offensive line sucking?
Well, he was asked about the attendance was amazing. It was almost packed at the Rose Bowl.
That's only happened when LSU goes there and when Deion Sanders goes there.
And Deion was asked, and he goes, well, it'd sure be nice to win at some of these games. People come to watch us. Like, I think he deserves some credit for all the noise he got in the beginning of the year for starting out undefeated. Dude's handled the losses pretty well, actually.
Yeah, the only part that I will push back against him from is the way that he threw a positional group under the bus in epic proportions this weekend.
Did you see the first half numbers of that? Like,
sure, their offensive line sucks. Nobody disagrees with that.
Had maybe the most pressures I've seen in a college game in a long time. That was pretty bad.
I thought his luggage was Louis.
Well,
why isn't his offensive line luggage Louis? Those are all transfers. He brought all those guys in. Those were all handpicked out of the portal.
Yes.
And this dude's just pretending as if there are all-pro offensive linemen waiting in the transfer portal every year, and we can go find them because that's the easiest thing to do, right? Let's go find elite offensive linemen to replace an entire starting offensive line, have them then gel together to the point where we're a dominant rushing attack. It doesn't work that way. And to say after the game we're gonna go get new offensive linemen. Like, imagine being one of the offensive linemen listening to that clip. This happened in Pittsburgh as well. Do you see what Pat Narduzzi did?
I saw he threw the entire team under the bus.
He said, we thought we had better players. Evidently we don't from last year. And the players are all tweeting like, what the hell, dude? You're the head coach.
Fade Pittsburgh this weekend.
Yes.
There's a lot of quit that's going to happen the last month with Pittsburgh.
Look, there are bad decisions. There are losses that are on coaches from time to time. Sometimes it's on the players. As a head coach, it is always your responsibility to take the blame. These are college kids, and to say, like, come out and say, hey, this is on me. I didn't do a good enough job in the portal. I whiffed on some, I need to do a better job at getting the offensive linemen. I think it's viewed differently, but it's to say we're going to replace all these dudes because they're ass. Like, bro, that was your job in the first place, and you didn't do it.
Did Lincoln say his defense looked great?
He did, actually. He defended Alex Grinch.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
Oh, you really?
I'm not kidding.
In the post game?
He was asked, why are you still not making changes on defense? And he said, well, it's more complicated than that. We handed him short fields. We turned the ball over. We had some 3-and-outs. We didn't help the defense in those spots.
He's gone, dude. Lincoln Riley is gone. There's no way you defend that defense if you care about the future of your program going to the Big Ten. He's got to be gone.
I'm working on a theory. It's not going to happen, but I'd love to see it. Thought experiment.
Yeah.
Could Oregon run the ball on every play and beat USC?
Yes.
Like, not attempt to, like, even just let them know going in, we're not going to throw the football. We're just going to call different runs. Can you stop it?
I think Oregon could start Novoso and win the game.
Just hand it off.
Like, that's how little respect I have for what USC currently is.
We gave up 49 points to Cal.
I mean, we gave up 40.
That's true.
It's 9 less.
Juggernaut.
Though,
That's right.
That's 49. Take away 40 is 9. That's 9 less points.
Cal team got smoked on the road at Utah.
Yeah.
It make sense.
You can't make anything make sense. We didn't get to one game, but I want to talk about Washington and one other game that's kind of connected to the Huskies. So we'll get to that next. Any cause for concern in Seattle? What we make of the Huskies last 2 weeks. We'll get to that next on The Fan.
Seahawks football is on The Fan.
right now. We will talk about Oregon State's incredibly stupid loss to Arizona this weekend. If you can't tell, I'm dressed as Jonathan Smith for Halloween. Happy Halloween! I got another costume for tomorrow. You guys will enjoy that one. So we didn't talk about one of the other Pac-12 games because we're going to talk about Washington here.
Okay, let's do it.
Washington got into a bit of a back and forth with Stanford on Saturday.
A bit of a back and forth.
I mean, they led. Stanford would score, and they're like, oh, it's a one-score game again. Oh, Washington's going to put it away. Fumble! Stanford scores again. One-score game. Until the end, and Washington ended up winning. In the last 2 weeks since Oregon, Washington has narrowly escaped Arizona State at home and narrowly beaten Stanford on the farm. That has led many people to go, see the last 2 weeks? Oregon's legit. Washington, something's wrong. Where's the cause for concern for Washington?
I think it has to be incredibly high. I would use the term incredibly lucky the last 2 weeks. They got the benefit of somehow a picked up defensive pass interference call on that final drive for Arizona State that still doesn't make any sense. Arizona State proceeds to throw a pick six. They had a game this weekend that felt like it was over in the first half. We were texting about it as we were watching it and kind of flipping around in that that early evening window. And it's like, this is done. They're up. Stanford's not going to win this game. It's over. And then all of a sudden you look up and you think, what the hell is going on here? And they get a fourth down play call against them that is executed to perfection, in which a dude just drops a pass.
He was clean. He was open. He might have scored a tutty if he caught that
He
pass.
goes for another 20 yards maybe, right? And that was at the time a 35-33 game with time dwindling. They only needed a field goal to win that game.
Yep.
If that guy catches that pass, who knows where that drive ends up? They have gotten incredibly lucky the last 2 weeks. Now, what does it mean going forward? That's the million-dollar question. Is this a Washington team that has been eating rat poison and told how great they are and how they're going to go to the playoff and they're going to win a national title, and they have come out incredibly flat the last 2 weeks, and playing an actual tough schedule is going to resharpen them? If that's the case, then Washington will be fine. If this is the way Washington is going to play the rest of the year, they will lose. Maybe once, maybe twice, but they will lose a game in their last month stretch. It starts with USC on the road this weekend. We can all make fun of Lincoln Riley and his defense. It's still not easy to win in LA, and that offense is scoring on basically everybody. You have to go to Oregon State. You have a tough, physical Utah team coming to town, and Washington State doesn't look like much right now, but it's a rivalry game, so we'll see what the hell happens there. Their last month is ridiculously tough. It was nice to see Penix get it going. It sounds like he was dealing with some sort of illness or flu, and that was the reasoning for being a little off early on in that game. It sounds like it was going around the locker room. The head scratcher for me, though, for them, a week ago, their defense won them the game. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. Stanford is not a team that scores a lot of points on people. They gave up 500 yards of offense to Stanford. They were outgained in this game by Stanford. They gave up 300 yards through the air, 367 to be exact, and about 130 yards rushing. Like, that's a really bad defensive performance. And it again begs the question of, are you balanced enough to survive for the long haul, or are you too one-dimensional heavy just in terms of your passing game?
Well, the thing about Washington, clear my throat there. Thing about Washington is there's no refuting how they've looked the last 2 weeks. We were wondering, I was saying out loud last week, like, is Penix hurt and they're just lying to us? Because he didn't look good throwing the ball against ASU. He looked perfectly fine on Saturday. He didn't look like somebody with broken ribs. He slang that rock. He had, 300-plus yards. Mm-hmm. He had touchdowns. But sometimes in seasons, you're going to have weird lulls. And I'm just wondering, is this a playing down to competition because it's not as exciting as playing in Oregon at home? Or are there real red flags? Arizona State, we didn't even talk about this game in the last segment. Arizona State whooped Washington State's ass.
They did. I did not see that coming.
They didn't just win the game. They whooped their ass. That's a team you have a lot of respect for.
For sure.
Arizona State mollywopped them. So I think we need to be fair here with one of the two teams at least. Arizona State's been better the last 4 weeks. They just have. I'm not saying they're a good team. I'm not saying Washington, that's an excuse to play poorly at home and not score a touchdown. I'm just saying, like, the defense is legit, and their offense showed up this weekend and embarrassed Washington State.
Very true.
So at least that win looks a little better a week later. The Stanford game is just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I think it's a middle-of-the-road defense who
they lost 42-7 the week before to UCLA.
No, I know. Stanford's a bad team. I'm just saying, like, my explanation for that, just middle-of-the-road defense, giving up big plays, having costly turnovers at the worst time. Odunze fumbled when they were going into drive, which would have put the game away.
Very true.
And Penix threw a ball that Odunze was going to catch, but then, like, the back of the DB and then somehow turned into a pick. So
I actually thought that ended up being a ball don't lie moment because they got a defensive PI to extend that drive that I thought was a horrendous call.
Well, so did Stanford. Stanford's coach was pissed about that.
Horrible call.
But my point is, like, costly turnovers at the worst possible time made that more of a game than it probably would have resulted in. And so, again, I see what everybody else is seeing the last 2 weeks. I think right now what we're sitting in as we go to the second hour is, right now for me, it's got a real feel of Washington won the battle, Oregon looks poised to win the war.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that's looming in the next few weeks is what Washington does. Do they escape through the schedule? Do they lose at Oregon State? That we know that team can play at home. Do they lose to USC this weekend? I don't know. But they've looked real weird and out of sorts the last 2 weeks, and my only thought is, are they just playing down to their opponents, which, by the way, isn't something you want to see, but I did think of a local team here in 2010 who went undefeated through the whole season and had 2 games that made you go, And one of those games was an early game at Arizona State that Oregon narrowly won 42-31. I remember that game. And then they narrowly beat Cal at home 15-13. That was the year Oregon went to the national title game against Auburn. And just, I remember the Notre Dame team that went against Bama. They narrowly beat Navy. They narrowly beat Stanford. Sometimes teams have weird weeks in seasons where they run the table.
There's no question about that. That is a definite possibility. If you're a Husky fan, you better pray that's the case.
Yeah.
Because the next 3 weeks is a brutal gauntlet for you.
Real test.
And it starts this weekend in Los Angeles.
I tend not to think the last game of the year is big a test.
And that's totally
as the
fair.
others.
Washington State's not the team that we all thought they were when they beat Oregon State. They had knocked off Wisconsin and Oregon State at that time, and they were undefeated, and they were feeling good. That's not a good football team, and that's been proven over the last 6 weeks or whatever. USC, though, offensively is going to give that Washington defense some nightmares.
Oh, absolutely.
And Utah is a physical team who I'm not just watching them play one game against Oregon and pretending as if they're not going to be tough the rest of the way, dude. That's a Utah team that's going to upset somebody and beat somebody, and you're going to say, damn it, there goes Utah again. And not to mention Oregon State, who is a drastically different team at home and on the road. So the reality for you is if you play the way you played the last 2 weeks, you're going to lose 1 or 2 games. And you better hope that this was a lull. The rat poison thing is real, man. People tell you you're great. They constantly remind you, you're great. You're going to win. You're going to be fine. You're going to be great. And the next thing you know, you're like, all right, we're great. We don't need it. Yeah, this is awesome. And then you almost lose Arizona State and to Stanford. And so we'll see what Washington team shows up this weekend.
We will get to the cluster F that was Jonathan Smith down at the desert on Pac-12 After Dark, but we kick off the second hour. Oregon goes on the road and dominates Utah. We'll start there. Hour 2, Dirt and Sprague on The Fan and YouTube.
After a big dinner,
Landscape. Listen on Odyssey or wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, I tell you, Jennifer, she is really a party pooper.
This is Dirt and Sprague.
Really? Jennifer poops at parties? So she poops at parties, so and people know this?
With Andy Dirt Johnson and Brandon Sprague.
I poop at parties. But people don't know because I close the door.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080.
Where do she go for it? Does she visit the water closet and make door of the open so people may see and smell things? This sounds horrible.
The Fan.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2, Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader 1080 The Fan, the Odyssey app, 99.5 HD2, and of course, the beloved youtube.com/1080 The Fan, the Vancouver Ford text line. It's 503-864-6326. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them at vancouverford.com. And if you missed the first hour of the show, the Service Patriots podcast can be found at 1080thefan.com. Check out the latest special offers for our listeners at servicepatriots.com/1080thefan.
Boom.
We will get into Oregon State and what the hell happened there in the desert. But I want to start the second hour. I got a poll question up, actually going up. We're not going to talk about it now, but are you freaking out about Scoot Henderson? His first 3 games, he's averaging 7 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists on 33% field goal percentage and 8.2% three-point percentage.
I think the answer to that is a collective yes. Blazer fans are definitely freaking out about Scoot Henderson.
I was surprised that I had 4 different people text me yesterday. Are you concerned?
The Fade Blazers, by the way, undefeated.
Fade Blazers.
The Fade Blazers are undefeated 3 games into the season.
Yes, sir, they are. Good morning to Joey, who came in here early, bright and early, our digital guru, and Swigard over there handling the business for the YouTube stream to be up. So thank you guys for working your ass off.
Well done, boys.
We always appreciate that.
Well done.
Let's start the second hour. Boy, your team's responded to a loss pretty well.
They have, Bob.
Pretty impressively.
They look pretty good this weekend.
They did. They have all the makings of a team that looks like they're going to run through the schedule.
There's a vibe there. It feels really good right now. I maintain that was your hardest game left on your schedule, mainly because of where you're playing people the rest of the way. USC at home, Oregon State at home. Those are no doubt your toughest games.
Well, and then also how one of those teams looks and how the other team doesn't know how to play on the road.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon State just can't win games on the road right now, and USC is a dumpster fire defensively that will not be able to stop Oregon under any way, shape, or form. And so that game being at Autzen, I think there's a level of confidence there. And the other aspect of this, like there was a moment in that game that I thought will sum up kind of how the last month of the year goes for Oregon. And a lot of people had probably turned the game off by this point. Oregon was up 35-6 in the fourth quarter. They eventually put Ty Thompson and the rest of the backups in. But early on in the fourth quarter, they had a couple of drives that were really clunky at the end of that game. Some false start procedural penalties, guys running wrong routes. Like it was a distracted team up 35-6. Like this thing's over. And you know how Bo Nix was handling it? He was screaming at guys.
I saw him scream at Bucky Irving late in the
game. Who ran a wrong route.
Yeah.
He cut out instead of cutting in, and both threw the ball into the ground, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs. He's yelling at his offensive line because they kept having procedural, but just not paying attention, false start. And it kept that game from probably being an uglier final score than it could have been because Oregon, I don't believe, scored after the first 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. I don't think they scored again the rest of the game.
I have a theory on that.
Okay, well, I thought it was – I think that sums up where the mentality is of the leader inside your locker room of demanding perfection. And even though you're up 35-6 late in the third quarter, this game is over. Most people have turned it off by now. Hell, Joel and Gus Johnson are doing conference realignment conversations on the broadcast about all the great matchups we're going to get because there's nothing to talk about on the field. Your quarterback is yelling at his offensive lineman for jumping off sides, and that's the standard that he has.
I have a theory that coaches have certain other coaches they have a ton of respect for, and so they don't go out of their way to embarrass them.
They definitely have a lot of respect for Kyle Whittingham.
Kyle Whittingham has maybe the most respect of any coach in this conference, given what his track record is. This also happens to service schools, academy schools, except LSU. When they play Army, they've got to win 55-0. Go Tiger. But most people lay off the wood on the service academies and coaches they respect. That's kind of my theory. Because otherwise, yeah, Oregon should have won that game 50-6.
I think part of it was they just stopped. They got distracted too. There was a lot of really dumb penalties and just stupid mistakes that were made in a game that get made when you're up 35-6. And I love to see a quarterback that's yelling at his guys that we got to finish and that's the standard and you got to set it at a really high level.
I'm not one that particularly subscribes to Bo Nix Heisman stuff.
That's
I
fair.
think just as easily a week ago we were like Bucky Irving, and then Bo Nix has a great day. So it's just like a back and forth, kind of cancel each other out thing. And as good as they looked, they were humming offensively. I didn't have a lot of expectation for Utah offensively. I think we talked about that. It was one of the reasons Swag just kind of were like, Ducks -6 feels like free money in a way. I expected a one-dimensional offense to be somewhat slowed down. But my God, I mean, they physically just dominated the living hell out of Utah. Utah could not run the ball to save their lives. The safety turned running back wasn't a story this weekend.
Nope.
The pig farmer might be going back to the pig farm to go work on the old ranch. Like, nothing Utah tried to do worked at all at any one point.
Nope.
The best they could do were 2 field goals. The defense to me, even though it became Bo Nix nationally, the defense to me, especially with that stud in the middle, Brandon Dorless, it's terrifying to watch that defense. And it's the one thing, like, you hate the jokes about the Civil War, the 19 straight runs. I tagged you on Instagram and jokingly made fun of you for it. But I do think, like, it ended up being what you mentioned about the Washington game, a great loss. Because, yeah, it hurts in the moment to blow that lead. But Lanning went to the locker room and was like, I will never be embarrassed like this on the defensive line again.
Yeah.
And I will be stunned if any team does that to Oregon this year and maybe even next year. The way he has built that defensive line with Mateo coming in as a freshman and getting a ton of snaps. Obviously, they rotate these guys, but you've got Dorless, you've got Birch. My takeaway was, as unimpressed with Utah's offense as I was going in, I was still walking away going, damn, that Oregon defense, man.
That's still an offensive line that is healthy. Of all the injury notes that Utah has, their offensive line has gotten healthier as the year has gone on, and they're a team that can run the football, and that's Utah's calling card. And to completely dominate them in the first half and to not allow them to run the ball with any success at all, they only had one run the entire game longer of 10 yards. It was even eye-opening for me. I wasn't surprised in the least that Oregon won the game, and I had people tweeting over like, oh, come on, Utah's not even that good. It's like, I love how we play that game immediately after the final score, when all week it's like, I don't know, Utah's going to push them, and now they're not any good. But the reality is, I think people were surprised by how dominating the win ultimately ended up being. I wasn't surprised that Oregon won. It was the way in which they won. And there's a really good feeling of hiring a coach. I think Oregon State has gone through this. I know you guys aren't high on your guy today. You're wearing a clown mask, and we'll get to that game.
We'll talk about it, but yeah.
Sure, but there's an aspect of, like, hiring a guy, understanding what his focal point and his strength is going to be, and seeing your team slowly turn into that and be like, man, he's a good offensive mind. He's going to run the football. The strategy behind it, like, it's going to be really sound and solid, and it's paying dividends. Oregon hired a defensive coach, and there were times last year where you felt like, did you hire a defensive coach? Hey, I thought Dan Lanning was supposed to be a national champion. Why can't you stop anybody? And it's like, well, it's 50-50, right? You got to have the scheme, but you also have to have Jimmys and Joes if you want to execute at a high level. And Oregon went about getting Jimmys and Joes. What they did in the portal in the offseason was remarkable. They added basically an entire starting secondary. Tyshim Johnson is another one of the transfers that we don't ever talk about. He had 2 picks in this game. Both of them are incredible plays. One of them down along the ground and did a great job holding that ball. Kyrie Jackson's been great. Birch has been great. Nico Reed's been great. Justin Jacobs is now in. Like, that is almost an entire starting defense that they found in the portal, while also backfilling through recruiting. You mentioned the freshman Tuioti. You have Mateo. You have Blake Purchase, who had a great edge rush in that game. Like, it's a great balance of guys that were brought in to win now, while also young players that are allowed the chance to be depth pieces and play and develop as the year goes on.
Yeah.
And to see a head coach who is in a year gone from being a bit of a nightmare defensively, when you look at the metrics for Oregon last year, outside the top 100 in some pretty key categories, the 19 straight runs against Oregon State, to now being one of the best defenses statistically in the country, into allowing, or holding, I should say, 3 different Pac-12 opponents without a touchdown. it's remarkable the progress and the growth that they have shown. And it's also really exciting to then connect that dot to where they're going in the future, because Oregon currently in recruiting in 2024 has more blue chip defensive recruits than any other school in the country.
Well, I think it's clear we can take away from Dan Lanning, no matter how people feel about Dan Lanning, if they trust Dan Lanning to win the big game, if they think Oregon's going to run the table here now. I think the one thing that's evident to everybody or anybody paying attention, he's building it. He's doing the SEC thing.
Yeah, I want to be big and physical up front on defense. That's how we're going to win.
Mario was doing that, and his offensive lines were good, but some of his defensive guys ended up being massively overrated. Jordan Scott. Oh my God, he's so big. And he had a good freshman impact. You didn't really hear much from Jordan Scott after the first season. It was kind of gimmicky, he's just a really big kid.
Justin Flo was the highest rated linebacker recruit in Oregon history. How many times did you hear his name called Saturday night?
Well, he was somebody that I was like, hey, can we pick on him a little bit? But
he blitzed to one side. He just was ears pinned back, blitzed to the right, and I started laughing because you could see him gearing up for a blitz.
Oh, yeah.
Oregon State literally ran the ball the other direction for a 17-yard gain, and he was blitzing between the two tackles on the other side.
But Mario came from that same thing, where I saw a clip yesterday where Taj Lapoy did a sit-down interview with some dude on some show, and he basically talked about how Dan Lanning got him to come to Oregon to be the D coordinator and how he was happy at Jacksonville, and he got his roots from Bama with Saban, and then he goes to Georgia with Kirby Smart, and Lapoy just talks about his ability, how he could identify things even as a GA, and I think it's clear to see, Mario wants to build his football teams that way, but Lanning is identifying the right talent to build his teams that way. That in itself is a skill. It does help to be able to get any player you want, financially, recruiting, whatever, but it is a talent to find truly the right fit for the team and the scheme. And I think that's the thing that we see with Lanning is you can make fun of the losses he's had with Washington, Oregon State last year. That's fine. But you can't also sit there and tell me you don't see what's happening or you can't see what's coming.
Yeah.
And I think that's the exciting thing, because I want to talk about that, how good this Oregon team looks. And I get it. They have a loss 3 weeks ago, but you've seen what they've been post that loss. You've seen what the team that won's been post that loss. How does this team stack up right now in terms of how people are feeling? We'll get to that coming up next on The Fan.
It's The Fan on
when really it's closer than it is too far.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
YouTube.com/1080 The Fan is where you can find us on video form. Audio is obviously 1080 AM. Odyssey app, 99.5 HD2.
The listeners are really enjoying Clown Mask Nanny Cam during breaks. It's a hit today on YouTube.
Well, can we correct it on the YouTube stream if we're going to comment on it? And that's great. I'm glad people are enjoying it. I'm not a clown. I'm Jonathan Smith today. So I'm just going to let that hang right there.
Just let it hang. Let it hang.
We'll talk about that. I have a lot of thoughts. A lot of thoughts.
Okay.
Like Harbaugh, a lot of milk. A lot of thoughts. But we're talking about Oregon. They win at Utah.
Yes.
Bo Nix is getting the Heisman love. And
I'm with you on the Heisman thing, by the way. Like, I if he is to end up winning it, it would be like Oregon wins out, quarterback best team kind of thing. He would be one of those Heisman winners.
Well, that's kind of like how I view it right now is I think we're reaching for the narrative-based stuff.
Sure.
And I said this last week, and he's got a great opportunity. LSU is not in the playoff, but LSU has Bama this weekend.
They do.
If Daniels puts up stupid stats, like if you go look at the betting favorites, Nix has the same odds as Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
Does that surprise you?
No, Travis has been up and down a little bit this year, but Florida State's undefeated, and again, that's a quarterback undefeated team thing. I don't think he's been their best player, and I think to the point of Oregon, you can make an argument there's been times that Bucky Irving's been the most important and best offensive player you have.
Right.
Florida State has been Keon Coleman, but quarterback undefeated team, one-loss team, like you're going to get that recognition.
Well, I don't think I'm overstepping a line here. And yes, I'm doing this a little early because we still have a month of football left. And sometimes, as Sukanik says, what?
Crazy things can happen, man.
No, I was going for the football's football.
Oh, football's football.
I thought you watch the most football. How do you not know the phrases? Like, what are you doing here?
Football is football. Yes, it is.
You know, I'm not offended by that statement, but man, that's a ballsy thing to just say out loud. Like, nobody watches more than I do. Like, it doesn't offend me, but it is kind of funny to say that out loud.
Yeah.
I love the confidence in which you said it.
I mean, when you're cocky sniffing a little bit, I'm cocky sniffing today. There's a little bit of that. I was met
You're
with
peacocking, Captain.
A lot of pushback on a DJ Fafita point that I made, and I haven't seen a lot of Beaver fans defend DJ late in that game. So you know,
yeah, we'll get to that coming up. Thank you for bringing me to my hellscape early.
No problem.
I understand you need seasons to finish to get to a certain point, but I'm just going to be honest with how I feel. I watched your team. I'm evaluating just like as a media type how I feel and what I'm seeing. They really remind me of the 2014 team, and I know that team got all the way to the pinnacle, and I was doing a show with you that night. You thought, we're going to win this game. We have a third-string quarterback on the other side.
Yeah, talk about painful losses.
Well, yeah, and then Zeke Elliott happened.
Yeah.
But you got to the national championship game is my point,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if Oregon will, but man, I just can't find a whole lot of weakness. Defensively, they feel like they've found themselves. Offensively, they're humming right now. Again, a month left, but I kind of tend to do this with every team in college football that's really good. This Oregon team kind of reminds me of that 2014 team, just balanced, really good on both sides, and you trust the quarterback.
Yeah, I think everybody's feeling really good about the final month of the season with the caveat of college football is stupid. Stupid things happen. The sport doesn't make any sense sometimes, and you cannot take your eye off of that possibility. I remember in 2019, Oregon being a one-loss team. This is part of the reason why I chuckled with Oregon State's reaction to my comments on Friday. I remember in 2019 being the same way Beaver fan was on Friday when people threw out the notion of Oregon could lose at Arizona State. And I remember it was John Wilner who said it. You know, no team has ever gone 9-0 in conference play.
Yeah.
Oregon lost their opener to Auburn. They had rattled off all those wins in a row. They were 9-1 with 2 games to go. And he said, I'm just going to take Arizona State because nobody's ever been 9-0 in conference play, and I think they're going to trip up here. And I remember being upset, like, how dare you pick my team to lose? How dare you throw out the idea they don't beat Arizona State? That's a bad team. They're below 500. They have a freshman quarterback. No chance it happens. And then you're watching, and you're like, oh, God, college football is stupid.
Yeah.
Stupid things can happen. If I would have told you 2 weeks ago that Washington was going to struggle at home and be lucky to beat Arizona State and then struggle on the road the next week and be lucky to beat Stanford, you would have laughed at me and said there's no chance. We all three took Washington to cover a 28-point spread down on the farm this weekend. They'll bounce back. They're not going to do it back-to-back weeks.
Yeah.
They had their letdown game. Washington will be back. The sport doesn't make any sense sometimes. Oregon feels great. I think you just passed the toughest test remaining on your schedule. That doesn't mean you're going to win out and it's going to be a cakewalk. You got to bring it every single week, and everybody has that reality in their mind. Here is the thing, though, that keeps me going and confident as a fan. There have been times that Oregon teams over the years have been similar to a Washington team this year, where they're dominant offensively, and that overcomes other weaknesses on their roster, but there are weaknesses elsewhere on the roster, and eventually you worry, will that rear its ugly head? This is an incredibly balanced team.
Yeah, where's the weakness
all
to
year?
you?
Camden Lewis in a big kick, maybe, if you want to go there because of the end of the Washington game. But defensively, I think
closer, and he won't be as shaky, I think.
Defensively, I think they're the best team in the conference. I don't really have doubts in my mind about that. UCLA's numbers are a little bit better, but they didn't play a Power 5 team in non-conference, and they have not played Washington on the road in Seattle. So
also beat a good team.
Beat a team,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. So I would take Oregon's defense over basically anybody in the conference this year.
Yeah.
Their rushing attack is as good, if not better, than literally any team in the conference this year. You could say their passing attack isn't quite maybe what a USC with Caleb Williams or a Washington with Penix is, but you're splitting hairs at that point.
Good enough.
You're good enough.
Yeah.
You have an NFL wide receiver on the outside. They have one of the best offensive lines in the conference. Like, this is a complete football team.
Yeah.
And there's been years we're rooting for a team that, hey, they're propped up because of your quarterback, or you're propped up because of what you're doing offensively, but your defense is a liability and you got to bend but not break. This Oregon team doesn't have that reality, and that's the biggest argument going for them right now, is they are a complete football team more so than anybody else in the Pac-12.
Is there I know how you are. You operate in the I don't want to jinx things category.
Yes.
Is there a team, though, they remind you of? Not like that their season's going to end the same way, but you just see them and they kind of strike a chord with you of this team. I've heard some 2011s. I've heard some 2012s.
Yeah.
I've heard some 2010s. I've heard some 2014s. I personally kind of identify 14 because of your quarterback experience, your offensive line, your running attack. And you look, Franklin is amazing. He had a couple drops, but Franklin is really good. Tez Johnson is outstanding. He is the Tyler Lockett of the Pac-12 this year, and he has great. I mean, you don't even hear the other names anymore. I barely hear about Holden. What happened to Chris Hudson? Is he hurt?
He has not been hurt. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being a transfer situation.
That's unbelievable.
He's played in less than 4 games, I believe. This year.
You don't even see him play. And then the freshman who wants to wear 99. 99, Jerry and Dickey. How's that going? Like, that's how good Tez Johnson's been. He's on the field. He has to be on the field. So, I don't know, again, how their season's going to end, because as we point out, football is football. But I don't know. They kind of have the makings of that team. A really good defense and sound offense that you trust because of the quarterback.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard to compare them because I think you can make a pretty strong argument. This is the best Oregon has been defensively, maybe ever. And that, to me, sets them apart, where I think I would argue the 2014 team with Marcus Mariota. I think he was a better college quarterback than Bo Nix. I don't mean that as any disrespect to Nix. He's in a great system, but I would take Mariota probably over Nix if that's a debate that we're going to have.
I don't want to debate
He won the Heisman Trophy, right? So I would argue they were more reliant on him and his explosive big plays and all that, and the defense was more of a bend, don't break. Not that defense didn't have a lot of really talented players. I trust this Oregon defense more than I did those in the past.
Do you trust the defense more than the offense?
That's
because I think I do.
I might. Yeah,
I know they gave up a 30 spot to Washington, but that's a damn good offense and hard to slow down.
Here's the thing, though. This is the frustrating part about that loss ultimately for me, and I know we got to go, but if you convert 3 yards, 3 yards, you hold Washington to 27 points and Michael Penix to roughly 260 passing yards.
Yes.
And I said that the Monday after the game, that if you convert that 4th down, you milk the clock, the game is over. That would have been the narrative of like, oh my God, you went on the road against an offense that nobody could stop and held them below 30 and their quarterback below 300 passing yards, held them to 7 points in the second half. At that point, that was all they had scored on their opening drive of the second half. Like, that would have been the storyline, but you don't get the yards. Washington goes on to win it, and now it's a conversation about 4th downs instead. They had an incredible second half in Seattle that just was blown up because of not being able to pick up 3 yards.
Well, I don't know where people would label it, but this year's team is pretty damn impressive. That was really physical, just pound your opponent into the ground football in Salt Lake City by Oregon as they beat the Utes, and they continue on. Let's go to the other in-state school.
Let's do it.
I'm wearing the head coach's costume today. Oregon State loses at the Desert to Arizona. A lot of thoughts and feelings on it. We're faking field goals 25 yards out with the kicker running it. Really, that's a thing? We'll get to it next, but first, Swag with the Sports Update.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
Brought to you by X Golf. It's indoor golf season. Check out X Golf in Vancouver or Tualatin, the home of indoor golf, online at xgolfpnw.com. First on The Fan. The Ducks, now the highest-ranked one-loss team in the AP Top 25 college football poll at 6th after they demolished the Utes in Salt Lake City 35-6. They are right behind the undefeated Huskies, who are 5th. The Beavers' loss at Arizona dropped them 5 spots to 16th. Utah now 18th, UCLA 20th, USC 24th. The first college football playoff committee rankings will be released Tuesday afternoon. Geno Smith's touchdown pass to Jackson Smith in Jigba from 9 yards out, under a minute to go in Seattle. The difference in the Seahawks' 24-20 win over the Browns. Seattle now leads the NFC West by a half game after the Niners lost to the Bengals. Seattle visits Baltimore to face the Ravens this coming Sunday. Monday Night Football is in the Motor City for a Detroit Lions game for the first time since week 1 of 2018. They are 7.5-point favorites, hosting the Raiders. 5:15 kick on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Blazers road trip continues in Toronto this evening after a 126-98 loss to the Sixers in Philadelphia. Sunday, 4:30 tip on Root Sports Northwest Plus. The Raptors currently 8.5-point favorites. In Game 3 of the World Series from Phoenix, with the Diamondbacks and Rangers squared at a game apiece. Max Scherzer, former Hillsborough Hop, Brandon Pfaadt, your scheduled starters. First pitch at 5:03 on 910 ESPN Portland. Pregame coverage at 4. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swangard from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
One number does it all for contests.
through the show today, there's nothing worse than when your team gets a tough loss, their rival gets a big win, and the you could not be more on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Oh, I know.
So it's always hard. I remember Duck fans tweeting, "I'm not going to tune in Monday. I can't take it." Like, man up, tune into the show, you bitch. I'm going to throw this out there before we get to anything.
You bitch.
That on Saturday night, can I file that to the Sports Emmys as the worst broadcast you have ever watched in your entire life?
It's certainly in the conversation, Andrew. I would say, though, in that specific moment, I went, yes, Rod Gilmore, you are spot on right now.
Oh, sure. In that moment, he was right. The play-by-play guy called them the Ducks multiple times, called them Oregon multiple times.
Our P1 Ralph tagged us in a video, and it was like one of 7 times.
Dude.
And then at the end, he says, Oregon runs for 8. State.
Yeah, he had
to add the state because I think a producer was like, yo, you keep calling them the Ducks. Yeah, and he's finally like, hey, the Oregon State.
What are we doing here? You're an ESPN broadcaster.
Well, now you see why the relationship.
This isn't the CW. What is happening?
Well, this is why the relationship was not going to go forward with them. It just they don't care about it.
I just wanted to get that out of the way. There's a ton of things Oregon State fans want to talk about. If you want to gripe to me about the broadcast, totally fair. I thought it was horrible. The mic issues were bad. Yeah. He was a wannabe Gus Johnson.
Overmodulated. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah,
horrible.
That was really bad.
Let's get to the elephant in the room. My co-host is wearing a clown mask, and he's wearing a Jonathan Smith mask.
Thank you.
That is what he is dressed. You just got to start rubbing your nipples aggressively. That's what you got to do. Please, somebody grab that on YouTube. Please, somebody grab that.
Yeah, they did not milk the clock properly at the end of that first half.
So let's get to it. End of the half. I'm assuming, is there an audio bit in here? Okay.
I have the explanation of what was that.
Okay, we don't need to play the play again. We just heard it. Here's the explanation. What were you thinking, Jonathan?
Ultra aggression, and that starts with me, and it shouldn't have been. You know, we put the fake in. We actually had it called when we took the delay earlier on the fake field goal, and once we took the delay, backed it up and kicked it, and then ultra aggression. I don't exactly remember, but asking Atticus to score from 20 yards out. You know, 25. We had the look we wanted, all of that, but it was just a bad call at the time. There's some momentum that you can take 3 points into halftime. We had prepped the thing for 2 weeks because we had a bye. You know, and I was just chomping at the bit to get the thing called because the picture, what we anticipated, and really what we got, was a pretty good look. But the logic going into the thing was a 4th down, medium 4th and 5, 6, you know. And I just rolled the dice on that one, and hindsight was not good.
I love the, he's clearly going through it.
Yeah.
Horrible call,
yeah.
And it backfired. I was thinking to myself at the end of that game, I'll let you go here in a second. First off, the onside kick was on the ground for like a half hour, it felt like.
I thought Bolden was going to grab it. I'm like, somebody's going to grab They just didn't jump on it. I'm like, somebody's going to pick this up.
I was freaking out of like, don't let Oregon State win this way. I was ready to cocky sniff on Monday. Don't let them come back.
Well, I sent out a tweet, and I'm like, oh, my God, they scored in a minute. And then I'm like, what if they get the onside kick?
That was a crazy play. I will maintain, though, scoring that last touchdown for Oregon State was probably a bad thing because then it, of course, left the final score being what it was. You lost by 3. The decision loomed. If you don't score that final touchdown in 4 plays, 75 yards with the 2 minutes to go, and the final score of that game's what, 27-17 or whatever it would have been.
Yeah.
Maybe there's quite a little bit different feeling, but you scored the touchdown, you lose by 3. One of the all-time bad blunders. How are we doing today?
Well, you can tell we're not doing well. I didn't take it very well. It took me about an hour to go to sleep. I just think when people that you don't ever put into a certain category do things that surprise you, it like lingers. And Jonathan making that play call decision, Dirt, I'm trying not to overreact, but that might be top 5 worst coaching decisions I've ever seen in my life, given time, place, moment for team. And I know, hyperbolic, you could point to NFL coaches, other college football coaches. I'm sure you can. You were 25 yards out where they actually were holding the snap. We watched you fake the field goal prior, and then the play got called dead. And to act as if Arizona didn't know that was going to come was crazy because I was like, you literally just ran this in a dead play.
You did. Delay a game.
And my other thing is I'm just not like once in a while faking something to catch somebody off guard. Okay. Atticus Sappington is not running 25 yards on the Arizona defense. If you want to run the football from 25 yards out, Can we just, give it to the second leading rusher in the Pac-12? The Pac-12 freshman of the year last year? Can we just do that? Is that a hard choice? I put up a poll question. Who would you rather have 125 yards? Martinez or Sappington somehow, and I think this is the trolling. Sappington has 30% of the vote so far, so that's making me feel great.
I know I want to go vote for him.
And there's nothing you can do. Like, there's not an answer that's going to satisfy how pissed off Oregon State fan is today.
No.
That's his answer. You ask him again, he's going to kind of say the same thing. Eventually, he's going to be asked so many times where he's like, I've already gone over this. Like, it was an all-time dumb blunder that cost his team in a season where I would readily admit they don't look like they're on the same level as Oregon or Washington, but at least it would have given you another week of just get through this, right?
Yeah.
We talked about going 9-1 going into Washington. Well, that's gone. That's dead. And we can talk a lot about Oregon State's offense, the play calling, but I could not get that play call out of my head.
It's totally fair.
Given everything that they had ahead of them and the opportunity they had. And there's a real conversation of, I don't know what happens on the road, but he is just not the same coach. That coaching staff is not the same coaching staff. And I was trying to play the opposite side of not worried about road woes. And then you had a game that you should have won and you grabbed it from yourselves and you gave it to the other team.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot believe today, Monday morning, I'm telling you that Jonathan Smith made that play decision. I cannot believe it. And there's no explanation that's going to make it right or make me feel better. It's just an all-time dumb coaching decision on the road.
One of the worst calls you will ever see, and there is no excuse for it. There's no rationale for it. There's no defending it.
I had Beaver fan like, it looked like Dan Lanning. Excuse me.
Yeah, stop.
That's not the same thing at all.
That's unfair to Dan Lanning.
You don't have to like the Dan Lanning play decisions on fourth down at the end of the first half, in the second half, and at the end of the game.
Yeah, it's a 4th and 2 from the 3-yard line. It's a little bit different than a fake field goal from the 25.
Yeah, that's not the same thing at all. You gave the game away, and I don't want him fired. I'm not going to that level here. Like, he's a really good coach still to me.
Yeah.
But man, you cost your team a dream season potentially. You really did. Now they could still be 10-2, like that's the dream, right?
Uh-huh.
Or 9-3. That's a really damn good season in Oregon State. But to lose a game that I personally think they should have won is incredibly frustrating.
Those are the worst.
And to make that decision in that moment, I cannot believe that even went through his head.
It wasn't even just that call, though, too, in that moment, because they were driving there at the end of the first half. They picked up a first down with 25 or so seconds, whatever it was left, decided to not call a timeout when they had 2 in their hip pocket.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of taking, because they were on the 20-whatever yard line. I mean, you can, with 25 seconds left in one timeout, you can still use the middle of the field. You can still take a couple of shots at the end zone. Instead, they don't call timeout. They kind of slowly get to the line of scrimmage. By the time DJ, and this is also on DJ, he's done moving around and scrambling in the pocket, throws the ball out of bounds. There's 8 seconds to go. Like, you let 17 seconds run off the clock in that moment. And so it was a double-edged sword to me, a mistake of like, dude, call timeout, take as many shots as you can there, and then obviously kick the field goal, because this isn't going for it on 4th down. This isn't a surprise onside kick. This isn't just being a little, let's go for 2. This isn't those levels of aggression, which I will usually defend because I like when coaches are aggressive. This is one that you cannot in any way, shape, or form look me in the eye and give me the rationale behind that call making sense.
He couldn't do it. No, I heard his answer.
Most calls will make, like, I'll get it. Like, hey, I might disagree. Onside kick against Cal. A lot of Beaver fans were against that. I get you're up 14-3. You got the look you wanted. We can put an end to this game right now. Okay, we can disagree about the results of it, obviously, but at least you can look me in the eye and explain your decision making to me. There's no sort of explanation that makes this make sense. Let's continue on this on the other side. We're already long there. Your thoughts are welcome, Beaver fans. 503-864-6326. That is the Vancouver Ford text line. You can hit us up in the YouTube chat. I want to just kind of wrap this up and then move on to the rest of the game, because there was a lot of other things to break down from the Oregon State-Arizona game, and we're back talking about it more next on The Fan.
Who's stinking it up?
Woo! Do not go in there.
It's time for Who's Stinking It Up, a sports lowlight that's ripped from the headlines.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Schedule your appointment online at threemountainsplumbing.com.
4th and 22. Mahomes getting away from Benito and then just heaving it downfield, and it's intercepted. picked off by Justin Simmons. 5th time he's gotten Mahomes in his career.
There's Kevin Harlan on the call as the Broncos snap the 15-game losing streak against the old Kansas City Chiefs in Denver, winning pretty convincingly as a 7-point dog.
I'd like to publicly apologize to the Denver Broncos. I have mocked and ridiculed and made fun of you endlessly. You still suck. You still have no hope, but I didn't think you were going to beat Kansas City for another decade. So the losing streak has come to an end. Congratulations.
Who's Stinking It Up? Brought to you by Three Mountains Plumbing. Make plumbing and electrical services delightful. Get your time back and let the pros tackle whatever project you need completed. Schedule an appointment online. Three Mountains Plumbing. That's threemountainsplumbing.com.
Hey, because there's a lot of other angles of this game that I want to talk about. That's the tough part when you lose a game like this. There's a focal point on one play, rightfully so. It's one of the worst calls I've ever seen. But there's also a lot of other reasons that Oregon, like they didn't just lose this game because of one call. They had many chances in the second half. Hell, I thought when they were up 17-13 with the ball after forcing Arizona to punt, this game's over, man. They're going to run the clock, and here comes Damian Martinez, and this game's going to be over in very short form. And that did not quite happen either. But, you know, a lot of texts were coming in at the Vancouver Ford text line about the decision-making and the idea. One Beaver fan is defending it, saying, come on, Lanning said the same thing. They had the look they wanted. They didn't execute. There's a defense on the other side. This is results-based shaming.
No, it's not. It's not the same thing. You can spin it however you want to feel better about it. It's not. Did Dan Lanning run a kicker 25 yards out at the end of the first half?
No.
Okay, it's not the same thing. I get it. Like, it sucks today. Your team lost. We lost at Arizona. They shouldn't have lost the game. Oregon looks amazing. Oregon looks like they might go to the playoff. I get the feelings are really raw right now. It's not remotely the same thing. It is beyond idiotic to run a field goal kicker 25 yards through the edge of a defense. It just, when does that work?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to point to some game, 1997, Sprague, 2002, Sprague. Cool. You give me 2 examples in the last 80 years of your life. Like, I'm sorry. It's not the same thing. It's just not something I ever thought that coach would choose to do. I get being ballsy and going for it. That's not the same thing. You want to trot DJ and them out there and go, no, we're going to score.
Yeah, we're going to go for it on 4th down.
I even think then he would get some backlash, but at least you're trusting your offense, your actual playmakers to go try to score instead of your field goal kicker. In what world is a guy named Atticus running 25 yards through the teeth of a defense and scoring from 25 yards out? It's
a hell of a name.
Stop with that. You can miss me with it. I also tweeted out kind of the same thing. Like, that play is an all-time dumb blunder. They did not lose the game simply just because of that. It's easy to look at the final score and say, well, there's the 3 points.
Yeah, but if they don't score on that last drive and they lose by 10, I think it's a bit of, you're still like, what the hell were you doing there? But it doesn't quite burn as much, I think.
Well, I would actually make the same argument you just made, which is what I did. Like, you were up 17-13 with 11:50 left in the 4th quarter and the ball. Where was the running attack? Martinez averaged 6.2 yards a carry. He had 7 carries in the second half. It's unbelievably bad play calling, piss poor tackling, and just atrocious coaching decisions. The entire coaching staff, in some regards, let Oregon State down. Now, there's varying degrees of how you can power rank it. The defense wasn't the worst in the world. I just thought their tackling was really poor, and that's kind of been a theme for them this season.
Yeah, the tackling in space was a struggle.
Playing McCoy, because you don't have Cooper, is brutal. He got destroyed by McMillan. Or T-Mac, as they just kept wanting to tell you on the broadcast.
T-Mac!
But damn it, dude, you cannot have possessions where you're not running the football with Damian Martinez. Those are moments that it cost you kids into the portal. Run the football. It's your bread and butter. It's your identity. It's ridiculous.
Can I try and sum up I feel like Oregon State fans are in a conundrum right now. And it's okay to acknowledge that both these things are true. Like, sometimes you'd look for an absolute one direction or the other, and the reality is usually somewhere in the middle of a debate. That being, like, Jonathan Smith is an incredible coach. What he has done at Oregon State to revive the program is remarkable. Like, Oregon State is not here in the position they're in, complaining about a second loss, looking at a 9-3 season or an 8-4 season as a disappointment. Like, that, he is the reason for that. And so there's always that truth that you have to acknowledge, while also on the other side of the coin, wondering aloud, is he ever going to learn the issue of being overly aggressive in certain moments? And is he ever going to figure out how to get big wins on the road?
I
there's
think
2
that's
sides.
the bigger deal.
Sure, there's 2 sides of this coin, though, and it's okay. Like, I feel like fans want to rush to one corner or the other, where it's like Jonathan Smith's an idiot, and this is ridiculous, and he should be on the hot seat, blah, blah, blah. While also, there's other sides that just want to defend him no matter what he does because Oregon State wouldn't be here without him.
You're right.
The reality is somewhere in the middle, man. Like, Jonathan Smith's incredible. His turnaround at Oregon State has been amazing. He is a phenomenal head coach that, for whatever reason, in certain moments can make a really bad decision, and he just cannot pick up that win. A lot of teams struggle to win on the road, man. It is not an easy thing to do, and it's a huge mark of maturation and growth in a program.
Right.
He has not been able to solve that conundrum yet.
He hasn't yet, and I don't even know where I'm at confidence-wise this weekend. You can tell me how bad Colorado is. I'll
tell you, they're going to kill Colorado. I'll say that on Monday.
Like, go do it then. Like,
I think they're going to run it down their throat.
I'm kind of tired of sitting here and look, he is the guy for the job. There is no questioning about that. Without Jonathan Smith, Oregon State is Pittsburgh or Boston College. They're an irrelevant team that nobody talks about because they can't get talent. This is where the talent gap kind of shows itself. You talked about this on Friday. The talent gap between Arizona and Oregon State. And some Beaver fans push back to that. That's actually true. And I think that's the hard part with this, too, is as mad as I am, as frustrated as Beaver fan is, there's just... Dirt, there's a real possibility, and I've been here for a while, but like seasons change and expectations can fluctuate, there's a real possibility that this is just always going to be a 9-3, 10-2 at best season type of program.
Yeah.
8-4 in down years, 7-5 in down years, 9-3, 10-2 type of team, because they do not recruit and they do not portal the amount of talent the likes of Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA. It's just different. And I think I come in upset, jokingly, displaying my anger, but also like, I love that he's the coach. I don't want him to go anywhere. There's no hot seat conversation.
No.
But it is weird how just statistically they are not remotely close to the same team on the road.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the talent gap shows. You can get up for your home games, but
it's a tough place to play, man.
Well, it's not just Arizona, though. They go on the road to these really decent, middle-of-the-road, good teams, and they don't play well. Washington State, like, what was that start?
Yeah.
And they've had this problem. They continue to have it. As you note, it's hard to win on the road. Dan Lanning in Oregon just had their first big road win of his tenure in year 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't get it. I guess I just lose the disconnect of how a team can be so disciplined, execute so well at home, and then go on the road and just throw up all over themselves almost all the time.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to a couple more. We got a lot of thoughts rolling in. We'll start the final hour more on this game because I want to get to the area that I thought Oregon State lost, and we got into it a little bit there. So we'll continue on that. Your thoughts are welcome. Fire them away. We got a ton of other things to get to in the final hour, including that just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. So it is loaded. Don't go anywhere. Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
The Portland Metro Art.
Do it.
1080 The Fan. an Odyssey station. Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the Ducks 35-6 pasting of the Utes on the road has them at their highest ranking in the AP Top 25 college football poll at 6th. They are one spot behind the Washington Huskies. The Beavers lost at Arizona, drops them to 16th, Utah 18th, UCLA 20th, and USC 24th. The first college football playoff committee ranking set to be released Tuesday afternoon. Geno Smith found Jackson Smith and Jigba in the final minute of the game for a 9-yard touchdown pass to beat the Browns 24-20. Seahawks take a half-game lead over the 49ers in the NFC West Division lead. Seattle visits Baltimore this coming Sunday to face the Ravens. Monday Night Football in the Motor City. The Lions are hosting the Raiders. 5:15 kick on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Lions currently 8.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. And after a long night in Philly for the young Blazers when they get blown out 126-98, they're in Toronto tonight to face the Raptors, 4:30 on Root Sports Northwest Plus. Raptors currently 8.5-point favorites. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swangard from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
Do it every morning. Dirt and Sprague. Weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. on Portland's sports leader, 1080 The Fan.
I'd like to say something.
This is Dirt and Sprague.
Back in '82, I used to be able to throw a pigskin quarter mile. Are you serious? I'm dead serious.
With Andy Dirt Johnson and Brandon Sprague.
God, there was one week when you wore sweatpants every day.
Oh, you know what? If they were Sean John sweatpants, it would have been fine. But because they're Costco brand, it's like the worst thing I could do.
Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, let's do this. Final hour. Dirt and Sprague here on Portland Sports Leader, 1080 The Fan, 99.5 HD2, the Odyssey app, and YouTube. If you want to see my co-host wearing a Jonathan Smith clown mask. He has kept up the bit the entire show. I'm impressed. I don't know how you've done it.
Thank you.
I feel like you're going to get some weird acne on your forehead out of this thing, but it is.
I had that in high school. It's over.
It's a good-looking mask, and the listeners are quite enjoying clown mask commercial break nanny cam of you just sitting over there bobbing your head around wearing a clown mask. We got a lot to get to in the final hour. I want to continue on this game a little bit, quickly reading 2 texts, and then get to a stretch in the game that I need explained to me.
Yes, because I have something else I want to add about the coaching road situation that stuck out to me.
So here we go. A couple of Beaver fans chiming in. There's a lot of these coming in, so I'm sorry I'm not going to read all of them.
Yeah.
One of our P1 said, I said it Saturday night, if the time that stupid fake field goal was attempted, Jonathan Smith has to realize it's no longer 2018 with his teams. I get taking chances, but there's a line where taking a chance and just doing something desperate and stupid are completely different things. And that fake field goal was desperate. It was stupid. And I just want him to realize at a certain point that this team is better. So just go win with your team. Don't make these dumb, ridiculous, low percentage chances on something that was never going to work in the first place. Another Beaver fan adding a little bit of perspective, and I think perspective is always important in moments like this.
Me too.
He said, it's a good thing Beaver fans are pissed. Success has bred an attitude of apathy to expectation to win. This is healthy.
Yep.
I'm pissed about Saturday night as an alum, but after 24 hours and a profitable NFL Sunday, congratulations.
Hey.
I had some clarity. If you told me this is where we would be as a program 4 years ago, I would have signed up immediately in it. In year 4, Smith and the Beavs have to take one last step to cement it itself as a constant top 25 program, win the coin flip games on the road, yada, yada, yada. Basically, the perspective of this, it's good that we're here.
Yes.
You might go 8-4 this year. That's a reality. Washington game is going to be tough. I like my team's chances to win at Otts, and you guys haven't won there in a long time. A disappointment at 8-4 is a very good look in the mirror and understand that's how far you have come.
Well, I think, while
also being frustrating because you felt like there could be more.
I do agree 100%. Perspective is good. As I come in here dressed like a clown. But it's good. It's good to have that perspective. It does take a day or two to kind of understand it. And I actually agree 100% with it. The fact that they're a top 25 program in itself is amazing. The moments, I'll just use the other local school here.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you see is the difference is when Dan Lanning makes a bad decision, and let's take away 4th downs, but there are moments in games where coaches don't make perfect choices.
Mm-hmm.
They can be covered up with the talent. right? So, like, sometimes certain plays won't stick out as much to us as when a team like Oregon State, who has lesser talent, does make those mistakes. I'm not mad about going for it on fourth down. If you're at 4th and 6th, if you're at the 6-yard line on fourth down at the end of the first half, and you really believe you can score a touchdown,
we have a play here that works.
Yeah, Beaver fans not all going to be happy about it, but I can understand the logic.
Hell, if you just fake the first field goal instead of the delay of game, which they tried to do,
yes,
you just needed 2 yards. That's different if you're just running for 2 yards to pick up a first down to continue the drive and not asking your kicker as time expires to run 25 yards without getting tackled.
We know momentum is real, and what did you do at Arizona at the end of the first half? You ran a fake, and Arizona goes in going, we stopped them with the points.
Yep.
We're feeling good about ourselves now. Here we go into halftime.
It's a tie game 10-10.
The area, if we're just talking, though, about X's and O's or coaching or whatnot, there's been something I've noticed on the road with them, and this is why I say, like, wait and see or prove it at Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a moment in the Cal game, and I've been holding this for a couple weeks now, but it showed itself again at the end of that first half, where they got the ball, there's 25 seconds left, you have 2 timeouts, you just got a big first down. Everybody and their mom knows, call timeout.
Yeah.
You kill the clock at 25. There's no rushing to the line. There's no loss of time. You say, like, DJ's back there and he waits and he waits and he waits. Yeah, that wasn't great, but, like, he's supposed to run a play.
Sure.
They're probably taking an end zone shot there, so he's kind of, like, waiting for guys to get open, which is a whole other conversation, too, because I think DJ clearly is limited in some ways, but I'm also not going to act like they got a Trey Franklin or a Roma Dunze out there.
Or Tutorial McMillan.
Or McMillan.
Yeah.
I think the receivers are good. I think they're a bunch of 2s and 3s. I don't think they have a 1. That being said, you take a timeout there. Everybody knows this. This is established. And what did they do? They let the clock tick down. Now there's 8 seconds. You get 1 shot, and that's it. They did this at Cal. Cal punted the ball back to Oregon State at the end of the first half, or at the end of the first half, but it was with 15 seconds left. And you might say, what are you talking about? It's 15 seconds. Oregon State had 2 timeouts. They let the clock bleed at the end of the first half of the Cal game. Clock management for this coaching staff has not been good on the road. And now that's twice with 2 pivotal road games. One you did win, but you were kind of lucky because you gave up 40 points. And this one you lose. Clock management, it's also a problem on the road. At home, it doesn't seem to be. And I don't know what that is, Dirt. I don't know what it is. I don't know how at home he might be able to get this team to beat Washington, but on the road, not a chance in hell you would trust him to do it. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if the road environment makes him feel like he's got to be a little more aggressive and a little more desperate, a little ballsier.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I've noted it this season. Clock management on the road, not good. Clock management at home and execution, stellar.
They kicked a lot of field goals at home a week ago against UCLA, or 2 weeks ago, whenever that game was. They settled for a lot of field goals. They didn't fake any of them.
Nope.
And they were at home, and they got a pick 6 at the end of the first half, and the game was over. Defense ended up winning them that game. I will tell you the area that I thought, there was a couple of reasons why I thought Arizona had a good chance. One, it's just I have personal nightmares of my team playing in Tucson and 7:30 kicks that will scar me for the rest of my life. And I tried to share my pain and suffering with Oregon State fan on Friday, and I was met with a brick wall. I told you this is a dangerous place. You don't want to go near Tucson. I'm really glad that my team doesn't have to go down there. That was the main reason, but some of the other reasons I thought Arizona had a legit shot to win this game was I didn't feel like there was a big advantage at quarterback, and I felt like there was a massive advantage at a position that you just highlighted, and that is a playmaker on the outside. Arizona has a bona fide NFL wide receiver in McMillan. Like, that dude is going to be one of the next big things. If he played in a conference where there wasn't a Roma Dunze, where there wasn't a Troy Franklin, he would be getting far more headlines. He's 6'4", 200-plus pounds, and I don't care who's healthy or not healthy at corner, you're not going to be able to defend the guy. Oregon State did a good job a couple of times of bracketing him in coverage, and Fafita still tried to fit it in there, but he had playmakers on the outside. Cowing is another playmaker who, his punt returns at the end of that game were massive to give Arizona good field position on their last 2 touchdown drives, one of which they only had to go like 40 yards to score to take the lead. So playmakers on the outside were a big of it, but the other part of it that I just wasn't there yet with was Oregon State offensively, both at the quarterback position and from a play calling standpoint. In my opinion, like, Oregon State calls this horrendous fake field goal at the end of the first half. Didn't make any sense. There's no excuse for it. Horrible decision. We all can acknowledge that. That being said, You held Arizona to a field goal to open the second half.
Yep.
You then settled in defensively. You went on a 9-play, 80-yard touchdown drive. You had a 17-13 lead with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Yep. You would just force Arizona to punt. Now they did pin you inside the 5-yard line, so it's a tough drive to do.
That was a hell of a kick, by the way.
By Fafita, man, multi-talented, right? 17-13 game with 10 minutes to go. You picked up a first down on your first 2 plays. I think Martinez ran for 6, and then you threw for 6, something like that. You got a first down out to the 13 or 14-yard line. You then on first down went 1-yard run.
Yep.
Incomplete pass, punt. They return it to the 40, short field, touchdown. You're now trailing. It is now a 20-17 game. On that next drive, you called a pass play on first down. DJ scrambles for no gain, 2nd and 10. Incomplete pass. You punt the ball immediately back to them. They basically milk the clock, score to go up 10, and the game is over.
Yeah.
The 2 most important drives of the game, you not only play calling wise got away from your bread and butter and what terrifies everybody about playing Oregon State, and that is running the football, but also your quarterback in that moment went 1 of 5. 1 of 5. And you were stopping the clock and throwing incompletions, and there just was no semblance of hope offensively in the biggest stretch of the game. When they forced that punt, and there was that the Fafita kick where you're like, are they going to go for this? Because I think it was like 4th and 10 or something. Like, are they really going to go for this? He kicks it down. Oregon State got the ball. I thought this game is over. This is Damian Martinez time. This game is done. I'm an idiot for thinking Arizona was going to win this game. What a moron. And then there we were with some really bad play calls. And the quarterback who, albeit I think an upgrade unquestionably over what you had last year, a guy that in certain moments just has struggled, and I thought that was one of them for him.
So I don't mean to come in here and act like DJ played a great game. I'm not going to do that. Like, there were some missed throws. There were a couple things. There were a couple times he should have been picked. I mean, he had
2 in the first half that should have been picked.
That safety, if he ever wonders, Coach, why don't I play offense? Because of what you did against Oregon State. You should have had 2 interceptions.
Arizona dropped 3 picks in the first half. One of them was on Childs, too.
That being said, Childs, that throw.
See, but the play before, he should have thrown a pick 6.
I know. The thing about DJ that I'll defend is this is not the kind of offense where they go throw, punt. They don't have the receivers for it. It's not pass protection-wise. We talked about this last week. They have the 2nd most pressures given up of any other team in the conference. It's a great offensive line that can run block, but for some reason in pass pro, they have really struggled. So I think it's a combination here. I don't think they've got elite wide receivers.
Nope.
I think sometimes you go through these periods of a game where DJ kind of lacks confidence and he feels pressure. I think he gets happy feet because he's sacked or pressured. And then you're back there and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get pressured, and you're missing parts of the field. So like DJ hasn't been atrocious, but you're not set up as an offense to win the game through the air. You're set up through the offense to run the clock, run the ball, and set up 3rd and manageable. That was the other problem for them. In the second half, outside of that touchdown and the quick one they had at the very end, they got stuck in 2nd and longs and 3rd and longs. And when you get in that, you feel pressured to pass. And I thought that was a big mistake of their play calling. I've defended Brian Lindgren a ton. I thought he had one of his worst games as the play caller in the second half of that game. You didn't give me enough Damian Martinez. That kid should be getting 20 carries a game minimum. He ran for 6.2 yards per carry. And so while, yes, DJ to me is an upgrade at quarterback for Oregon State, I don't think the situation, nor do I think the offense at Oregon State is designed or set up for him to be Caleb Williams, for him to be Michael Penix, for him to even be Bo Nix. I just don't think they've got those things. And that's what frustrates me is we all can see where their bread and butter is. And then as you highlight there, they have a possession where it's pass, pass, pass.
That's 6 plays. Punt. 5 of them were pass plays.
And yeah, DJ's not perfect, but it's just not the right offense to be dialing up that kind of play calling.
One other issue I had in the second half of that game, I remember Swag, I think it was after the UCLA game, said his biggest observation was Oregon State has found an elite tight end, and Velling was massive in the first half of that Arizona game. How many catches did he have in the second? I felt like I didn't hear his name once in the second half of that game.
I'd have to go back and look.
He was killing Arizona in the first half.
I think he's got the most touchdowns.
I think he does. I think he was close to a program record for touchdowns. Yeah. So he had a touchdown catch. He had 5 for 71. He was your leading receiver. I want to say at least 4 of those came in the first half. I know his touchdown did. You just didn't see a ton from him in the second half. We'll wrap up the conversation. Your thoughts are still welcome. Final thoughts. Oregon State, where do they go from here the rest of the way? 6-2 now on the season. Next on The Fan.
It's the Vancouver Ford text line.
Plenty of time to talk sports today.
One number does it all. 503-8646.
No, you don't want nada. None of this.
This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
All right, some final thoughts on this. I want to move on to a couple things in the final half hour of the show. Can I give you my first team all 5A quarterback read on DJ?
Sure.
There's times, I don't know if you guys feel this way. By the way, we found out Velling, what did he have? 4 targets and 2 catches in the second half?
4 targets in the second half, 2 completions.
Okay.
And 2 incompletions.
There's times where I feel like you watch DJ and you could almost see him think in the pocket. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just the motor's running a mile per hour slower than it should.
Uh-huh.
And there's a lot of quarterbacks will play. I think Brock Purdy's great at this. I know he's got a lot of doubters right now because they've lost 3 games in a row. But it's playing on rhythm. It's playing on schedule. It's anticipatory. Is that the word? Anticipatory throws. Like understanding, okay, this is my matchup. He hasn't broke yet, but I'm going to hit him, and he's going to turn around, and the ball is going to be there. Whereas there's just times where I feel like I watch DJ in the pocket, and when he's on schedule, God, is he fun to watch. I thought early in that game, it was like a 1-2 ball out, 1-2 ball out, and he was finding his guys. And I don't know if that's just pre-snap reads that ended up hitting, and later in the game, his pre-snap reads are not hitting. But then there's moments in games where it's just like he's standing in the pocket, just bouncing around. And I'm like, are you processing the information that's in front of you right now? Mm-hmm. And after like 3 or 4, bounces in the pocket, bro, just go. Like, you're a good athlete. Like, if, 1 read, 2 read, not there, screw it. Take off and go pick up 6 yards. I thought they used him at times in his legs decently well as an offense. And then there's times where it's just like the pressure rate sometimes isn't great for Oregon State's offensive line. I also feel like there's a Russell Wilson problem there from time to time where he creates some of the pressure by just standing in the pocket and not moving like a tree.
I think, the first half he had a play where it was an RPO and he pulled it and he ended up running for like 12 yards.
Yes.
And I'm glad you brought this up because I had been thinking about this all year and I thought it showed itself again, but I'm dressed as a clown today, so there's a little, you forget some of the things you wanted to make the points. But I think running the football with him, I'm just surprised they're not doing it more. Maybe that's part of this old wink and nod thing, but he is 6'5". How many Jack Coletto moments have we had with DJ? 4?
Not
3? I mean, I don't know how many we've had, but not many.
Not many.
He ran the ball at Clemson. That's the thing that's crazy is he ran the ball. Like, he wasn't running like Lamar Jackson, but he has some speed and he's got a big bruising body. Like, they don't utilize it whatsoever. Again, I'm saying this with no sourcing, but college football lends itself now in this college football era for me to think there's a little wink and nod with certain guys at certain places. And I'm just wondering how much DJ Cumming pro-style offense. His stock couldn't have been lower last year. Let me show up there. There's a lot of talent, a good coaching staff. Let me show that I can pass. I'm not saying that was a thing they talked about or that's some deal they have, but sometimes I can't help but go there because it just doesn't make sense that you're not running it more often. I did want to ask you guys because somebody was asking me.
Mm-hmm.
They scored a field goal and they hit a long pass. Does the child's possessions kind of kill the momentum in any way to you guys?
I was actually thinking that in the moment because I know Beaver fans were ecstatic with the bomb that he threw, which was a great pass.
I mean, it was a good pass. I was great would have led him into the end zone, but that was a good pass.
I mean, literally the play before, he should have thrown a pick six.
Yes.
He threw a ball across his body late, and the corner broke on it, and it hit him in the hands, and he had bricks.
Yeah.
And if he catches that, because I was thinking to myself, that drive was a little clunky. It was like a 2nd and 18, I want to say, when he threw that pass. And you're like, dude, we're in a tight game here. This is a massive moment for you. And you're going like, I'm not a huge, I understand what you're trying to do. I would rather see the child stuff as like a package here or there for like a play. Like throw him in there for a play, change of pace, do something fun, get him out of there instead of giving him the third series, especially in a pivotal role. They ended up scoring on the drive, so it didn't hurt him. That wasn't the reason they lost.
Right.
But if he would have thrown a pick six and that dude catches that ball, what are we all saying about the quarterback strategy?
Well, I think people have brought it up, though, because it happened in the Utah game. And by the way, that bomb he made was 3rd and 16. Like, I was sitting there going, they're not going to let him throw it.
Yeah,
right?
I thought we'd call it a draw or a screen.
Because he had just almost thrown the pick.
On the second down.
And it's like, okay, young player, hostile environment, like a lot on the line here. And he unleashed it and he completed it. But I don't know. I think it's fair. I get why they're doing it and when they do it. But, like, I also kind of understand the other side of are you hurting the offense because you're taking rhythm out? Like DJ may have felt really good at that point. Nope, come sit out for a series. Again, I understand from their perspective, but I just wondered if you guys had those same takeaways.
I don't mind them doing it for a series in the first half, but I would like to see the coaches maybe react to what's going on in the game. It's like, no, DJ's on a roll. Let's roll with him. But then if he has something, but it's also concerning too, is like, okay, if you bring him right in after he like makes a pick or throws a pick or something, does it go the other way? But maybe after a 3-and-out or something stalls or whatever.
They punted the possession prior to him coming into the second quarter.
Yeah, they went touchdown, opening drive touchdown, and then like 6 plays and punt on your second drive.
You know, that's the other thing is I wonder how he's coming to choose which times to give Childs these possessions.
It's always the third drive of the game.
The third series.
Has it been consistently the third?
It's scripted,
okay.
the third series. And
well, I knew it was scripted. I just couldn't remember what possession number it was.
Yeah, third series is where they've been, and so
that's a weird time to do it to me.
It is.
Especially because you mentioned DJ looked great. He was great on that opening drive.
Well, you had a touchdown, and then you punt. It's like, okay, so you're like, you have 2 possessions, you get 1 score.
They moved it pretty well in the second drive. I want to say they were derailed by taking a sack on like 2nd and 7.
They had 6 plays.
Yeah, he took a sack, and they were moving the ball though on that drive.
When they punted, they were at the Arizona 40 when they punted that.
Just a little flexibility. I don't know. It's the same thing as. As the fake field goal. You work on something, you prepare. People say, well, you're running these plays. Why do you continue to, run and you're getting stuffed? I said, well, that's where the blocking is. They're just stuffing it,
right?
Sort of thing. You can't just make stuff up out there on the fly. So, but I wish there was a little bit maybe more flexibility into the game plan based on what may be going on at any given time in the game.
We'll get to it at the end of the week or throughout the week, but don't let this game beat you another time.
Yeah.
As ridiculous as it sounds to people today, and I'm saying this and I know what I look like when I say this, but you beat Colorado, then you get Stanford, then you get Washington.
8-2 with 2 games to go.
You can go into Washington with an opportunity to pull an upset at home where you're clearly a better team and go into Eugene. Even if nobody, including myself, thinks you're going to win the actual game, you have an opportunity to not allow this to unravel. And Washington, their Super Bowl was Oregon. I think we've seen that last 2 weeks. They'll probably be okay. Maybe they'll lose at USC or they'll lose in Corvallis, but they've gotten through it, and that's kind of all you want is just to win. Oregon State, same thing. Don't let this game defeat you this week against a Colorado team that, we're not talking a whole lot about them. They played a pretty good game at UCLA, all things considered. That's not a team that we thought would win or even hang, and they hung with them for most of that game. They're going to come home. They're fired up. The jewelry was stolen out of L.A. You're not a good road team. Go out the road and get a win. Just take care of business, getting ready for Stanford at home, and then UW comes to your place.
We'll see how it all goes from here. He's wearing a clown mask, and he's done it the entire show. Props to you.
I haven't even done my clown laugh yet.
No, you haven't. Please don't do that. That's
okay.
It's
I'm not clown.
Somebody texted me, "How are you taking your co-host seriously today?" And I was like, I don't know. It's been a little weird. Took me a while to get comfortable with it.
Wait for tomorrow's.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow's actually Halloween.
Should you wear, as listeners are suggesting on the YouTube feed, a Chauncey Billups costume tomorrow? Is it time to panic? Next, First Year Swag with SportsCenter.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
First on The Fan, the Oregon Ducks, now the highest-ranked one-loss team in the AP poll after trouncing Utah 35-6 in Salt Lake City, with the first college football playoff committee ranking set to be released tomorrow afternoon. Washington still 5th, and then Oregon State's loss had them slide 5 spots to 16, Utah 18, UCLA 20, USC 24th. Seahawks get a last-minute touchdown from Geno Smith, the Jackson Smith and Jigba to beat the Browns 24-20. At 5-2, they take a half-game lead over the 49ers for the lead in the NFC West. They will go to Baltimore this Sunday to face the Ravens. Monday Night Football is in the Motor City. for a Lions home game for the first time since week 1 of 2018. They take on the Raiders at 5:15 on ESPN and KATU Channel 2. Lions 7.5-point favorites at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook. Blazers had a long night in Philly after the Sixers erupted in the second half for a 126-98 win. They were led by Joel Embiid, 35 points, 15 boards, and 7 assists. Portland now will look for their first win of the season in Toronto. They take on the Raptors 4:30 on Root Sports Northwest Plus. They are 7.5-point underdogs. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. Jason Swigart from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get in the game at Spirit Mountain Casino. Watch and wager on all the pro and college action. Learn more at spiritmountain.com.
The Odyssey app is your new audio home for all the music. This is Dirt and Sprague on 1080 The Fan.
Hey, right now, if you text RV to 503-864-6326, You'll be entered for a chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to the 65th annual Portland Metro RV Dealer Show.
Oh, I remember the first one.
On November 9th through the 12th. You can go to 1080thefan.com for complete details. Again, text RV to 503-864-6326.
Who doesn't love a good RV show? I always kick around the idea of buying one of those smaller RVs for me and my wife and my 2 daughters.
Well, an RV fam.
When Papa Swag was gallivanting around the country,
Pre-heart attack, right?
Yes, yeah. we went there initially and ended up finding it. So I mean, yeah, if you got discretionary income and need a big toy hauler, whatever you do, it's a lot of fun.
Well, I have a question for Dirt, but I do want to ask, since we're giving those tickets away, Swag, how has it grown since the first time in 65 years ago to you think this year? Because you were at the first one.
Well, they were horse and buggies when I first went.
Nice.
And so, yes, we went there from Steam and all those things.
You remember the good old Steam days?
Yes, so everything now.
Stopping to fill up didn't include gas. It was feeding the horse hay.
Exactly.
You gotta give
a
them
little
carrot
grain.
every now and then.
Always the occasional carrot was certainly helpful if you needed a few more RPMs.
I would lend myself to camp more because my kids like camping, but I hate camping.
Yeah, I hate
fundamentally disagree with camping.
Yeah.
Let's get dirty and not shower for 3 days. So you get jock itch and now you're filthy. But if you gave me something to sleep in that's not a tent on the ground, I could put up with it. I feel like I could do it.
If I give you an RV, you're going to be a camping guy.
You give me...
Totally, it's a game changer.
I don't need a big RV. I just need one where the girls are at one end and mom and dad can get it on the other end quietly and I can shower. You give me those options and I'm in on camping. I like being outdoors. I love the coast. I love the woods.
Just want some hot water.
Yeah, and I don't really... you can't really do campfires anymore because everything catches on fire. So it's kind of depressing to go to a campground. So let me go inside and watch Netflix on my iPad.
I'm going to read some lines at you, and let's gauge our level of panic.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Go ahead.
5 of 11. Oof. 0 of 3 from 3, 11 points.
Oh, my God.
3 of 12. 1 of 5 from 3, 7 points. 2 of 7. 0 of 4 from 3, 4 points. That is a collective 33% field goal percentage. And an 8% three-point percentage.
Stellar.
8. I didn't know it was possible to be that low. 8%. Averaging 7 points per game. The Portland Trailblazers are 0-3, and those are the stat lines of young Scoot Henderson. And there is I'm sensing my fingers on the pulse of this fan base.
Yeah.
There is a collective panic that is taking place 3 games into the season that it's out there, and it's a thing to behold.
If I knew where the screaming drop was, I'd play it because it does feel like that was Blazer fan after yesterday. There we go.
126-98. That was a game which, by the way, keep fading the Blazers. Now 3-0 and not covering
the
number.
Was that a 6-point game at halftime?
6-point game at halftime, and they lost by 30.
Yeah. I mean, I make
20,
these,
whatever.
I make prop bets, and everybody's like, "Why don't you just fade the over in the law?" I do that, of course. I'm just doing other bets with it.
So we had football Sunday over at Swag's first batch of chili of the season, all that fun stuff.
I love a good first batch of chili.
The first batch of chili.
Cornbread with it?
Huh?
Cornbread?
Sourdough bread.
Okay. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Different, but
like
it
that.
works.
I'm in.
Change
I
of
love
pace.
sourdough.
All right. Anyway, legitimate question. The Blazer discussion came up at some point and whatever. And then it's like, one of my friends asked, so when are they going to win their first game? And I didn't have a good answer. And I looked at the schedule. They host the Washington Wizards Thursday, December 21st.
No way. There's no chance it takes that long. They might win tonight. Toronto's a weird team.
At Detroit on Wednesday.
Just trying to live up to the mask.
But I'm looking at this thing.
They might win tonight.
In Toronto? They're going to win in Toronto? Is Toronto that bad? There's no chance Toronto's that bad.
Toronto's an 8.5-point favorite.
No chance.
Toronto's not very good.
They're at Detroit on Wednesday.
I will hammer Toronto tonight.
After that, I'm like, they're not going to be favored until that Washington game.
Yeah, but Washington just won the other day. I forget who they beat, but I watched a little bit of that game. They ended up beating somebody.
Tell me where they're going to win. I mean,
0-18, by the way, we looked this up. The NBA record for losses to start a season is 18. Two different teams have done it, the Sixers and the Nets.
Yeah, that was the Trust the Process Sixers.
Trust the Process Sixers.
That won 9 games that year, right?
9 games, I believe, that season. And then the 2009-2010 Nets also lost their first 18 straight.
I really...
But look, we can joke about this. There is a legitimate panic out there that Scoot has been awful.
Can anybody tell me what LaMelo Ball's first 3 games were statistically? Can anybody tell me that? Anybody? Bueller? 6 points.
I'm going to go
3 rebounds, 3 assists, 27% from the field. So, like, can we just calm our tits a little bit here?
No, we cannot calm our tits.
3 games in an 82-game season with a 19-year-old rookie, and we're freaking out because he hasn't dropped 20 and 10 in a game yet? I'm sorry. I have 0.0 concern at all about him.
0.0.
You know what I'm more concerned about? I'm more concerned that they won't win more than 6 games this year. I'm more concerned that DeAndre Ayton absolutely has to have somebody else get him points because he's not capable.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely concerned that Malcolm Brogdon doesn't care about passing to his teammates. He's just out here trying to score.
Which I don't really blame him.
I'm also concerned that Jeremy Grant cares and then doesn't care. Like, Scoot is at the bottom for me. And I understand people are freaking out because of Chauncey and, like, he might ruin him. Guys, it's really rare for 19-year-old rookies to come in and have monster impacts. And when they do, if you look up the history of the league, they largely become stellar, like, all-time type of talents. And I don't know if Scoot will be that. But I'm not going to panic after 3 games and say, oh, my God, he's not doing it. LaMelo Ball had worse numbers in his first 3 games, and nobody's freaking out about that dude. So I think it's a bigger question of what if they win like 12 games this year?
Which there is a very real possibility.
Yeah.
Especially if Robert Williams, who I actually really like, is going to get traded to Memphis, who looks disastrous to start their season and clearly needs a big.
Yeah.
You trade him. You trade
Brogdon to the Lakers.
At the deadline. Yeah, something like that. And then Jeremy eventually lands at a team, looking to make a playoff push or something. Once that happens, my God, watch out. They're already losing games by 30. It might get really ugly. I don't know what the number would be.
They just can't.
How many games do you think they would win? What would you wager right now? What's the number I could get you to say under? Is it 17? Is it 20?
I think 20
I would
right
say
now.
15 right now.
Yeah.
You really think there's a chance this team wins less than 15 games?
Yes. I mean, Ant's out for a month and a half. They can't.
Yes.
They can't score
No.
consistently without him.
No.
When he comes back, they still can't play defense.
Yeah, but how about Tamani? Because Tumani, I don't know why you're laughing. Was everything I say a joke today? Everything I say just a joke today?
I was waiting for this because
This is
their
how clowns become
little
killers.
mini run in the second quarter when they took the lead in Philly.
Dude, he's kind of
and
nice.
I was like, oh no, here it comes.
So we want
the
a
legend
nice.
of Tamani Kamara starts now.
Yes.
We won't overreact on the negative side, but we will overreact on the positive side through 3 games.
That's the Blazer way, baby.
Okay, just wanted to check. Can I ask though, like legitimately, all of the points you make on Scoot are valid. You're not wrong in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Like, is there a moment, like, do we get to a game amount this year where this is what it looks like? And you're like, dude, like, I'm not asking for 25 a night.
Some take over. I think
25
he's trying to be
games.
a point guard and a good teammate and all of those things. At some point, it's like, if you can beat your guy and take
Like,
over.
go to the, you can't get to the hoop and get to the foul line. And
Get to 25, we'll reevaluate. I still am not going to go crazy over my skis at the end of the season if the numbers aren't amazing. But I think largely this was kind of our point. All 3 of us. We had a top 75 player. We had a guy that made all NBA and was an NBA All-Star. And then we got the 7th pick and we got the 3rd pick. And we said, nah, we're going to restart. And then they masked it as if they weren't, and then like made kind of Dame-esque out because they were just willing to be uncomfortable. This was kind of the point. You had a proven commodity at that position, and Scoot may very well be an NBA All-Star and a great player, Dirt. There's also a legit shot. He isn't. It's what the NBA draft gives
there's
you.
a lot of top 5 picks that don't pan out.
This happens all the time. And so, like, I love Scoot. I'm not panicking about Scoot. But that, I think, proves today the point of the people who were like, can we trade these and try to build a good team? We've got a dude. We've got a dude. Well, now we're hoping we win more than 15 games this year, and our point guard averages, I don't even know what the numbers would be to satisfy people, 12 and 6? I don't know what the number expectations are.
I think that would do it as a rookie.
But, like, that's where we're at now. 3 games into the season, we've already hit the panic button, some of us, and this is kind of proving our point. This is why we wanted him to trade the 3rd pick and the 7th pick a year ago.
Yeah, because all this stuff's a crapshoot, man. All right, we'll put a bow on a Monday. We've got some poll questions to answer. Wrap it up next on The Fan. overwhelming.
Yeah.
We did not talk any NFL on the show today, so there will be a lot of NFL on the show tomorrow.
Well, we didn't talk other college football either.
Oklahoma lost to Kansas.
I kind of circled that game as a bit of a trappy game, and
first big upset in a while. I mean, we've been waiting. Wisconsin was close. They were sniffing, but didn't have enough offense to do it against Ohio State.
Boring-ass game that was.
It was terrible.
Pittsburgh's coach threw his team under the bus, and NC State's coach called out Steve Smith, who called NC State a basketball school.
He did. I love it.
Well, I'd argue, Dave Doran, you would have no balls to do that in Steve Smith's face because Steve Smith is a psycho.
Yeah, he'll mess you up.
He is absolutely psychotic and doesn't care. And we didn't even get to play Dan Lanning, who is, choosing to talk in the postgame about gun violence in America.
I love it, dude. He said it was an important issue for his players, and he wanted to speak up on their behalf. They told him it was their most important issue. I love it, man.
I love it, too. I wish more people would talk publicly about how we're feeling. That incident happened last week, and we largely try to stay away from some of these things as an escape for people.
Mm-hmm.
But admittedly tell you, it's hard, man. Some days I'm real conflicted. I feel like we should be spending segments on some of this stuff. But you know how this business is and certain things go. But Dan Lanning choosing to do that is it's certainly a choice by him. I don't think he said anything remotely political or controversial.
If you're offended by what he said, look in the mirror.
You're a snowflake.
Yeah.
I mean, point blank, you're a snowflake. Whatever that means to people, that's
Just
what that
saying,
would be.
Can we do something? Anything. I mean, anything. That's all he said.
And that was my only tiny minor pushback was like, Dan, I love what you're saying. We've been saying this for like 8 years, and these idiots will do nothing about it.
No, they will not. We also didn't talk about the World Series, Game 3 tonight.
Yes, the Diamondbacks 4-0 in the playoffs when Brandon Pfaadt starts. He is on the mound opposite Max Scherzer tonight.
A little stat nugget right there.
Hot take. I feel like the D-backs should be up 2-0.
They should.
I feel like they outplayed the Rangers.
Paul Sewell blew it in the ninth
inning. The Mariners
inning.
residue showed up.
Well, I mean, that guy is pretty good. I mean,
yeah.
Seager's pretty good.
Yeah.
Garcia's pretty good.
That was a really good game one, man. That was an awesome World Series
game. One. Game two.
I watched 10 minutes of that
well,
game.
I think for the Diamondbacks, it was important for them to bounce back and not let that affect them. It's like, okay, now we're going to get a series. You worried, man, if they were still thinking about that and it's 2-0, and now what happens? So, should be pretty interesting tonight.
Game 3.
Blazers at Toronto, 4:30.
Hammer the Raptors. Are we all roar boys tonight? Are you roaring with me?
Yes.
I'm roaring. My last Sprague in the line pick. First home Monday night game since 2018 for them. They're fired up, dude.
Jimmy G's back.
Let's go. That makes me even more confident in Lions -8 or whatever the hell the line was.
Roar, boys. Let's go.
There you go. Good little show. If you miss it, go check the podcast, the Service Patriots podcast, 1080thefan.com, at Dirt and Sprague and at 1080thefan. You can also find it on YouTube. Sprague's wearing a clown mask. He's going to dress up again tomorrow for Halloween. Thanks so much for being a part of our Monday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 6 a.m. Calling us next, listening to 1080 The Fan.
I'm Tristan Crick with BetQL. The Raiders travel